Hey everyone, and welcome back to our DC Films podcast. This is episode 25. This week, there's a lot to talk about. Since the last time we recorded, there's been a ton of news. One thing in particular that I'm ready to just celebrate and praise to every god out there that's finally happened. And I'm pretty sure you guys already know what that is. But before we go ahead and get into that, I want to introduce everyone who's here with me today. So each of you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves to the listeners?
Hello, my name is Artyom, and I am Greg Law on Tumblr.
Oh, hi, my name is Jean, and I'm Batch Activity on Tumblr.
Hi, my name is Al Speed, and I am Aspie Trench Batman on Tumblr.
I'm Story Advocate, and I'm Katie, and I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
I'm Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
I'm Rebecca, and I'm The Endeavor on Tumblr.
All right, thank you guys for joining me today. All right, so obviously there's a lot to talk about today. Okay, now obviously we're going to go into deep detail about the whole Joss Whedon situation. But Gene
Thank God he's gone.
Oh my God, I know. Okay, so I want to say even though I'm ready to go to talk about that, and you guys know I am, and we'll hold that off for a second because Jane has been unaware of the situation with Zack Snyder on Vero.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm kind of on Vero, but I have no idea how to use it, so I haven't really been keeping up with what's going on. But then they suddenly tell me that Snyder Cut is a thing, and I want to die. Tell me.
Okay, I want to preface this by saying nothing's been confirmed yet, but Zack Snyder has been posting a lot of behind-the-scenes images of the movie. Well, he's been posting pictures of Kiersey Clemons as Iris, Ezra Miller, Jason, Henry, and he posted like a picture of himself getting cut, and he's been posting like all these like really vague images, like suggesting something is coming, and we're all just
don't worry, he didn't cut himself. He didn't cut himself. It was just a cut that he got.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying like he cut himself for the picture, but he posted a picture of a cut on his finger and suggesting, the Snyder cut, but...
Oh my God, stop.
Now the optimist in me is saying Snyder cut, but the realist in me is saying Zack Snyder is just messing with us because he knows we can.
No, he's doing his Snyder-esque imagery allegory thing, and he's telling us that the Snyder Cut is happening, and he's going to announce it on the 25th, and I'm so excited.
Is he just gonna pull like an army hammer on us and be like, "Oh, guys, I was just rolling with it because you guys were like making so much buzz about it."
Yeah, see, and that's like the
that it's for real until
I feel like something's happening. I do feel like something's happening. I just feel like we should be cautious about how optimistic we are about what that thing is. Mm-hmm. And legally speaking, like he can get permission to release a lot of footage, which is what I'm most excited about. Is the idea that he might get permission to release some of the scenes that didn't make it onto the DVD. I think that's idiotic of Warner Brothers to not cash in on that, but it seems like something that might be something he could possibly do on Vero.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just gonna start releasing a lot of scenes that just didn't make it into the film, and I think that could probably be the case.
Yeah, for me, I'm just doing my best to not get my hopes too high, because of course I want nothing more than to see his amazing cut of Justice League, or what I assume to be amazing because it's Zack. But I'm just trying not to get my hopes too high because I don't want to be let down again. Yeah. But he's messing with our emotions, and I don't think he would be doing this just for fun or just because.
Yeah.
Like I feel like because it's Zack, there's a lot more to it, and especially all the stuff he's been liking. Like he's been liking posts about all the stuff he's been doing and like saying, there's something cryptic going on, and he knows he's doing it. He knows exactly what he's doing, and it's just for us. It's just like we're sitting here like, what is going on? And Zack's like, I know exactly what's going on, but you guys ain't gonna find out for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm literally convinced. Hey, do you guys know this YouTube channel called Flashback FM?
Yeah, they post a lot of like the scenes and stuff.
I'm literally convinced that is Zack Snyder in disguise, because that person has been posting a lot of Justice League edit scenes with Hans Zimmer and just a lot of the jokes taken out. Like I remember in one scene that was edited, it was the tunnel fight scene, and in that scene, it had that one scene from the trailer, you know, where Cyborg was like, "I heard about you. I didn't think you were real. I'm real and it's useful." And it was just so beautifully put into that scene. Like it almost seemed seamless. And I'm like, okay, either this dude is really good at editing, or this is just Zack Snyder under a disguise. I'm trying to figure out what. I think I'm getting close, but
well, also isn't it the same shit? Like they also, I think they're the ones who posted the Return of Superman deleted scene from Justice League on there, right? Because prior to that, I don't think Warner Brothers released that scene officially on the internet or anything. I think it was just on the digital copy. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think so.
Yeah. So that channel, I think, was the first one to post that scene like in really clear HD. So I was wondering, wait, how did they get? Unless someone just ripped the file from the digital copy or something, but I don't know. But yeah, this whole situation, I'm just like again, I don't want to be heartbroken again because I'm not emotionally prepared. But again, I don't think Zack would just be doing. Like my heart is telling me there's more to this, and that Zack isn't just messing with us because. Like, honestly, if he was so far removed from Justice League and he just didn't care about the movie anymore, I don't think he would be doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't be posting all these pictures. Like, I mean, he I feel like he might still post pictures and be like, oh, you know, like talking about Henry, like, talking about the actors and experiences with them. But as far as, like, the movie goes, I don't think he would be, like, necessarily going to the extent that he has been going lately and posting all this stuff and going out of his way to do all these things that are suggesting that there's something going on. Now, I don't know what that something is, but
I wasn't really convinced. Like I had a lot of doubts about, like, you know, I mean, like the Twitter conspiracy theory folks get up right away and start, you know, making huge prognostications. But I wasn't really convinced by anything except for the cut picture, which was super on the nose and weird. And just, like, kind of, like, you know, out of left field. In fact, I first saw it and I was like, what is happening? How dare you put this on my feed? Because I hate that kind of shit.
Me too.
But it's a really weird random thing to post, right? Because, like, putting that other promotional material out there, like, that's just, like, you know, oh, cool, I found this thing. But, like, they're all, I don't know, they're all kind of uniform. Connected. Yeah, and the posts kind of connect together, which is a little bit, there's something fishy happening. I don't know if it's, I mean, like, we have to assume it's intentional. It's Snyder. Like, every single time I've been like, that's too big of a coincidence, he's come along and quietly been like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. I think in metaphors.
Have I mentioned lately that I worship him? Okay.
Especially if you take into consideration how silent he was about Justice League ever since it was released. And now he started posting a lot of stuff about Justice League recently. He posted his thumb cut, and right after that he posted Henry Cavill as Superman. Like
back to back.
It was one of the major reasons for reshoots, and he hinted at this, I think.
Yeah, and
then
also,
Then we get Kiersey and Iris West, who was completely cut off from the movie. Then we get Barry Allen in his school uniform. Apparently, it was the scene that was supposed to be the one where he goes through the
glass.
Through the glass, yes.
Yep.
Well, that's
and Aquaman also, he posted a photo of a scene that was in the trailer, in one of the trailers, but also not in the movie.
Yeah.
But again, because I'm scrolling through his Vero right now, just like, of course there's like a bunch of like postage of just like his life and stuff, but like also he's been like commenting on a lot of people's things like regarding Justice League and regarding these movies. Like he's been getting like super involved with the fans too. And that's something that, not that he was like avoiding before, but like in the last like month, I'd say he's gotten way more active in terms of fans. Like he'll like some random person that he doesn't even follow post like this random thing about Justice League or Batman v Superman, and then he'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was intentional. I totally did that. Yep, you got it." And it's like, well, like now he's like validating all these things that are coming out. It's like he's been, in general, he's been way more active and way more involved with the fans, which is awesome. But also, it's like he obviously when Justice League first came out, he was like RTM said, he was very like just away from the situation. He was not like, I'm not saying he was like actively avoiding everything in that movie, but as far as like Vero goes, he just wasn't posting anything really about it. Like he might have been posting some behind the scenes stuff beforehand, but once it was out, it was like, well, it's out now, so. But now,
well, I always assumed that his silence was, because things were up in the air. So the fact that he's broken silence, the fact that he's posting about Justice League and he's saying things, especially the fact that he like gave Fiona a shout out on his Vero.
That was so awesome.
That's crazy. But also, like, she is the person who is the force behind the Snyder Cut website. Like, that's not a coincidence. He's been to that website. And, has definitely looked at all of her material, given that he, actually follows her and was willing to give her a shout out. All of that is pretty indicative to me that some decision was made one way or another. I think we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility the answer was no. And that having been given a hard no, he feels a lot more comfortable to talk about Justice League in public now. But, it doesn't necessarily have to be no.
Yeah, and also, we also have to remember that this is a different group of people under Warner Brothers. Like, this is Walter Hamada, who might have different ideas than Ken Fujihara did. So, the realm of having a Zack Snyder cut isn't too far off, since, this is like new people who are kind of in charge of the whole Warner Brothers and DC movies aspect.
Well, especially since they brought in, like, Walter Yamada, and they brought in some other, like, women in terms of, like, trying to, like, shepherd in the DCEU again. Like, there obviously is a regime change going on with the DC end of Warner Brothers, and I'm somewhat optimistic, but again, because of the whole Justice League situation, again, I'm trying not to get my hopes too high in terms of the Warner Brothers end of things, but like, with the regime change and with what's been going on with Zack, I feel, again, like, it's my heart and my gut telling me something's happening. I don't know what that is, if that means it's a Snyder Cut, or if Zack... I think someone suggested, like, maybe Zack's coming back for Man of Steel 2, or something along those lines.
Oh my god, I would die.
Oh, I would be psyched for that.
Even if the Snyder Cut of Justice League doesn't happen, if he gets to do Man of Steel 2, that will be satisfactory for me.
Now, so since we're on that subject, would you guys rather have the Snyder Cut of Justice League so we can finally see his true end to his trilogy, or would you rather see no Snyder Cut and see him back for Man of Steel 2?
That depends on who they're...
I would rather see Man of Steel 2, because I think since Snyder did Superman, I have been on a Superman binge. I think you guys have noticed it, where I've been watching a shit ton of Superman movies, like, back to back. And I think that's why, because I'm just so hungry for more Superman stuff. I feel like we don't get enough Superman stuff in terms of, having Superman being portrayed as a character with actual emotion and some depth to him. So if I had to choose between the two, I would rather see Man of Steel 2, mostly because it's something new, as opposed to retreading old ground that didn't work the first time.
Okay, I have a counter argument to that, which is that if Zack were to do a Man of Steel 2, right, he would be having to follow up on the story that he started with Man of Steel 1, which went through Batman v Superman and Justice League. So the thing is, my problem with Justice League, right, is that there's a lot of gaps in terms of the character arcs that Zack, like, wrote throughout Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, especially for Clark, because, before Justice League came out and ruined everything, we had a very, very clear sort of Campbell's hero's journeys sort of thing coming out with Superman, Definitely, Zack made it pretty clear that was his intention, with the symbols in his suit, right? It's in Kryptonian. So, like, we know that was the intention for Superman, but because, you know, it's Zack, he didn't just, like, completely adapt it the way, like, George Lucas did, you know, faithfully follow every step of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
But instead, he added his own twist on it and gave Clark like a really, really realistic and good human story. But because Joss Whedon's messy fingerprints all over my beautiful Justice League story, I have no idea how that concludes. You know, like everything's just sort of left hanging with a fake smile stitched on it. So, literally a fake smile. Okay, anyway, I can't.
It's easy. We just forget Justice League.
Yeah,
Well, that's the question I have. Like, if
how
Zack...
do you expect Zack to carry on that story if we don't have the conclusion of Justice League? Because, you know, we know that Zack did conclude the story with Justice League in his original cut. Like, that's what he always said that he was going to do. It was going to be like a 3-movie arc for Superman especially. And if you look at, like, the hero's journey, like, the return from the underworld is, like, the last section of the journey, right? So, I mean, Superman coming back from the underworld is what did happen in the movie, but we don't see that character development from him. So I wouldn't know how Zack would continue that story even if he did get Man of Steel 2. Nonetheless, if he did get that movie, I would also die and it would be amazing.
well, that's the thing. Like, I want to like if he does Man of Steel 2, would that be continuing the original cut of Justice League he did, or would that be continuing Clark's end from Joss's version of Justice League?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So
I think if he makes Man of Steel 2, he should just start it with the proposal scene and then, you know, just like insert footage that didn't get used from Justice League and use it as one of those like flashback things. Like he did it at the beginning of Batman versus Superman. He went into the movie before and told us what was happening during Man of Steel. He could equally do that with Man of Steel 2, which is just go into the story of Justice League and pull out this moment that was cut. I would start with the proposal scene and then catch up with them. And I think we'd kind of... I mean, it wouldn't be perfect. It would be messy. But I think we could still hit our stride. He would just have some catch up to do as far as the actual arc he wanted to do. He might even be able to complete that arc.
Yeah. Okay, here's the problem though. Like, okay, so even if they release a Snyder cut right now, right? What's gonna happen is that there's going to be 2 existing versions of the movie, right? And so which one are we gonna take as canon? Because for the Ultimate Edition,
the better one.
Well, no, I mean, like, that's the thing is that, like
the Ultimate...
Go ahead.
For BVS, the Ultimate Edition, we take it as canon, right? But if you try to argue with some stupid-ass film nerds, punch them in the face, okay? Argue some stupid-ass film nerds, right? What they do is that they'll try to use the cinematic version as the original version and say because it's the one that was shown in theaters, that's the canon one, and not the Ultimate Edition. The Ultimate Edition is just bonus. So yeah, so like if you release the Snyder cut, then how would we look at that? You know, how would Zack look at that? There's all these difficulties.
Well, no, well, the thing is, I remember
I want it, but
Well, it's funny because I remember we've talked about this before, and Danielle has actually brought it up and saying that the canon's already fucked up in this universe anyway.
So it's X-Men bad.
I don't know if it's X-Men.
I don't like
the thing is, okay, here's the thing.
Honestly.
With Batman v Superman, like, I think it's easier to say the Ultimate Edition can be canon because they just added on stuff that was already there. Where with Justice League, it would be 2 completely different movies.
Yeah.
Now, of course, fans would be like, "Of course, we're gonna accept the better one because that's just logic." But
I think,
but Justice League, I personally would accept the Zack version as canon because fuck Joss, and I don't want to see CGI face Henry be the face of the franchise now.
Yep.
And nothing against Henry, but it's more against Joss. And Henry, you're a beautiful person.
When you have your natural face.
But yeah, so with Justice League, I personally would take it as I would take the Zack version as canon because Zack again was continuing the theme set up in all the other movies, whereas Joss and Warner Brothers, and remember Danielle brought this up as well, but previously Warner Brothers was making an effort to be like, we're not guaranteeing any future of this franchise.
Yeah.
Like, we're actively avoiding setting up Darkseid and The Proposal and anything involving Superman and his future films because we don't have faith in this franchise anymore. So we want this movie to be self-contained, so that way if we have to reboot, we can be like, oh, well, we didn't promise anything, so you guys can't be mad at us, right? So.
Well, I think we also have to take into account the fact that the MCU and the DCEU are very different. And I think one of the things that I think is so different about the DCEU is that we do kind of play fast and loose with canon. Like, a lot of these timelines don't completely add up. A lot of the details are sort of like, you know, amorphous. Some of the stuff is just like, it doesn't fit together perfectly, like a puzzle. And a lot of the things about canon kind of seem like they're translated through each director's lens in a slightly different way. I mean, the difference between Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman and Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman is a great example of that. Yeah. That arc is different. And I think that messiness is a reason why I would accept there being two completely different Justice League movies. Because I would just be like, okay, well, this is just more data. It's just hard data, and I've got to find some way to put it into something that makes sense. Like, that's my job as a fan. And I think that's I think that's just a really interesting approach, and I think it wouldn't be a problem for me. It wouldn't be a problem for me at all. And I'd actually probably enjoy taking parts of the shitty Justice League movie and kind of being like, well, I accept this part and this part, but maybe not this part, and then taking parts of the Snyder Cut and kind of being like, these are the parts I like, this is the stuff I'm going to use for the basis of my arguments, etc. And I think, I don't know, as a fan, that sounds like a fun project to me. That sounds fine to me.
I already do that with Justice League, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I refuse to accept and never will. But, you know, so, yeah.
I mean,
well, that's the funny thing, too, is that, like, I mean, the whole... Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too, like, we're, like, the thing that comes to canon with this movie is the only time that's really been a little wonky for me, there's two instances. The whole, like, Wonder Woman's timeline and Suicide Squad's timeline of events that have transpired. Like, for me, like, when, like, in Suicide Squad, when they say Harley Quinn was an accomplice to the murder of Robin...
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But that... Okay,
oh, my God.
Well, yes, that's cool for fans. Timeline, how does that work at all?
It's terrible.
Because... Wait, what's the problem with Harley Quinn?
Harley Quinn is like 85 in experience years and like 24 in actual chronological years, and it doesn't add up. Like, everything she's done doesn't fit into 24 years.
Unless they age her up, which they haven't said, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. But, like, Margot Robbie's age kind of locks that in, and that's part of the problem, is that Margot Robbie, unless she's playing older than she is,
which is fine,
you know, is very young, and that kind of makes that makes fitting all of the things that she allegedly has done in this universe really difficult. I don't have a problem with it necessarily, except that, like, you know, my nerd brain is kind of like, this does not compute. This is terrible. Yeah. But
and then you got the whole thing with the killing of the Robin, because from what I gathered, and I think I'm trying to really grasp it, but essentially when it introduced Harley, it said that she was an accomplice to the, you know, death of Robin. But, like, I'm trying to wonder, the scene that took place, with Harley Quinn, Joker, and Batman all in one scene, did that all take place, you know, after that or before that? And
when did Jason die? Is the big
question.
Okay, well, also super unanswered and really hard to sort of pinpoint on the timeline, mostly because of Harley's age. Because, like, you know, I mean, like, I know how long it takes to get a freaking PhD. Even if you compress the timeline, she still has to get a PhD, get into that job, work at freaking Arkham Asylum, and then all of her life falls apart. By my calculations, she's 23 at least before that happens. Yeah. So either this was the most eventful year that anyone's ever had in their entire life, or this timeline is too compressed.
Yeah. Also, they tell us when Jason died. Like, I'm not saying that, like, I don't know, maybe they don't, but, like, they could. You know.
Well, because honestly, that's another thing. I think. Honestly,
nobody has any age. Just pretend that they're real.
Well, honestly,
it's always the woman. See, the woman is too young to have done everything that she's done. This is Hollywood time. This is standard Hollywood time. Weren't we already talking about how Brie Larson is a little bit too young to really be playing Captain Marvel, considering that she's a captain and it takes a while to get up to that rank?
She's old enough by the time they make this movie, honestly.
Sorry, this is Hollywood time and it drives me crazy. I hate that.
Also, when did Joker get the tattoo on his forehead? Like, that's another thing, because when Harleen Quinzel met Joker in Arkham Asylum, Joker already had the tattoo, and from what I heard, he got that tattoo after Batman punched his teeth in. But yet, it said that she helped in killing Joker, so that would have had to be before he met Harley. Joker would have had to kill Jason before he met Harley.
Yep.
But
maybe he did. Maybe. Wait, who said that the tattoo came after his teeth got punched in?
I read it in an interview.
The teeth getting punched in after Jason is fan canon, isn't it?
See, that's why I wasn't sure that it was
I think David Ayer suggested. I think David Ayer was the one who suggested that the teeth getting punched in was. No. He didn't say why Bruce punched his teeth in. He just said that it was Bruce. Like he heavily implied that it was Bruce, which we can assume anyway. But we don't know if it was for Jason or if it was for something else that the Joker did.
And then the Jason-centric fandom took that and said this is about Jason because we're obsessed with Jason, which is fine. I'm just saying that like that definitely seems like fan canon to me. Rather than actual canon, maybe not an actual mistake, but like I guess my overall point is that there are plenty of mistakes, and there are plenty of flubs in the timeline.
This is really loosey-goosey with the timeline.
Well, and the thing is that I think that's the nature of actually giving your directors creative control, and that's fine. And I think that's something that we've kind of accepted from day one. Patty's different, David's different, Zack is different. The variation that we've seen has been between directors, and I think it's really cool, honestly, that someone said, like, well, that's your vision. Like, it doesn't make any sense with mine, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
Also, just to kind of piggyback on the whole, Jason Todd thing, that's also something I think Warner Brothers is actively avoiding setting up for the future as well. Like, Zack wanted they don't want to nail down. And I think, if you look in Justice League, the suit is still there in the one quick shot of Barry running through the Batcave, but other than that, it's never brought up again. And I think that's Warner Brothers saying, again, we don't want to guarantee any sort of future storylines in these movies because they probably won't happen.
Yeah. Well, Josh is not a team player either. Josh has shown that he's not a team player.
He's all about him.
He took over Ultron after the Winter Soldier and basically just ignored the entirety of the Winter Soldier. Everything that happened. Completely ignored it.
Guys. Honestly, Marvel movies are known for having that kind of internal continuity, right? But you also have to kind of look at DC and Marvel here because Marvel has that insane chronological timeline in which they keep track of everything. But then
not everything.
Pretty much a lot of things. If you look at the Captain America timeline, literally every year they have some reason why each character is alive or something like that. Except why is Magneto still the villain? But anyway, but you look at DC, just look at the kind of I can't. It's a huge mess. It's a huge I don't even I don't know what it was called, the latest thing where they decided that they're not gonna follow chronological timelines at all anymore, and anyone can just write whatever whenever. But isn't that what they're doing with the DC comics right now? You can just write at any point of the timeline, and then things can contradict, and then because there was Rebirth, basically nothing makes any sense anymore.
I mean,
in a way, that makes it the truest adaptation of comic books ever, because comic books are terrible.
It's in character with how, like, especially DC comics have been written, in which like creators just create their own content within what their loose understanding of what the character is, and then they don't really consult other artists very closely about details, and then you have a bunch of conflicting details, and then you can just apologetics yourself into an explanation. You know, I think like at some point either fans just let it go, or you just kind of have a blast coming up with reasons.
Yeah.
And that's honestly that's the reason why these like headcanons and like fanfics really exist in the first place, because a lot of these timelines and stories are all fucked up to begin with. So it's easier to be like, okay, well, I know the starting point, and it's already messed up anyway from that point, so I'll just move from the point that makes the most sense and create the story that makes the most sense from there, rather than, oh, let me try to follow these stories from 10 different writers and 20 different artists. That doesn't flow and doesn't make sense because there's like 30 contradicting things going on at once.
Yeah, I didn't write straight up comic fan fiction until like a couple of years ago, and it's the most liberating kind of fan fiction ever. Because you can just do whatever. You can just be like, hey, this character is here and this character is a different age than they were before, and I can just repurpose this character to do this because I want to invent an entire, sub universe where CRL is the, center of the universe or something.
Yes. Like, give me the like fan fiction DC movies in which like every freaking writer or like director can like just create their own internal timeline for their movies, and then you just have like five different like directors directing 5 different movie series within the DC universe, and they're all based on their own head canons.
This is why I get so pissed off when
that's why, like, for me, like, when Man of Steel first came out, I was so excited to read that prequel comic that was written about Supergirl, because like that to me, like the idea of like expanding the universe before it really started, like to me, like that was exciting. But the filmmakers of these movies are like, oh well, it was in comics, so we aren't acknowledging that it ever really happened. Zack made an effort to acknowledge that it happened by showing the scene of Clark looking at the empty pod in the scout ship and it just being no one being there, and that's obviously from Supergirl from that comic. But again, it was never acknowledged again because whatever. So it's. Yeah.
The whole situation, like you're talking about with like all these different timelines and contradicting things and everything. This is why I get pissed off when people say it's not the canon or it's not following the canon. I'm like, there is no canon. There is no such thing in comic books, okay?
Storyline, buddy.
If it was a graphic novel, granted, it could not be following canon. But it's not a graphic novel. It's comic series, and they're all doing their own thing, so there is no canon.
What is canon
some
to
of
the
these
DC
characters,
comic?
Some of these characters are 80. Like, that's the crazy thing to me, is the people being like, well, that's not true to the character. And I'm like, which decade? Like,
that's my favorite thing, is when they're like, well, Batman doesn't kill, and they always go back to his first decade and go, yeah, he does. Totally did.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Well, and like you have to like sociological influences on comics and all of this stuff, and like, do we accept the 60s or not? And like all of these questions, like you have to grapple with all of that if you're really gonna look at it and say, like, what's the canon? I don't.
Do I accept that Superman was once in a porn? Not really. No.
Like just whatever headcanons you have about your character, as long as it's like not offensive and not horribly illogical. But, like, I mean,
it's all valid. Like, that's the coolest thing. Like when you think about pitching a comic, like, you know, like I do pretty much every week. When you think about like pitching a comic, like you can do basically anything. You can just take characters and completely repurpose them, or take characters and completely like replace someone with someone else, or just insert different people into the timeline. And it doesn't matter. And I think that's what's really cool about it. I think that's why I like the DCEU so much, is because it has that sort of like messy playfulness, that sort of like get into the world and pick up your toys and have fun kind of feeling, versus like, you know, everything has to make internal logical sense, which has just never been my ethos as a nerd. It's never been the way that I care. Like, it's never been the way that I care about nerd culture. I've never been like, well, this exhaust port on the Enterprise used to be in this place, and now it doesn't make any sense because this exhaust port doesn't lead to this, you know, feedback and etc. Like, I don't care. Like, but like that's the kind of stuff, like the kind of nitpicky stuff that like sets up for me that like we could have 2 Justice League movies and I'd be totally fine. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
You know what I would actually love to see that would be so weird that I just thought of? Like introducing, like, you know how the Watchmen TV show's coming, right? I was thinking...
Oh, I think he got cut off.
Oh no!
I want to hear what you're thinking.
Al, what you were thinking? There we go.
Wait,
there you go. So what were you saying?
I was saying, like, for each Watchmen, like, for Watchmen, like, say, for example, Dr. Manhattan. Like, I was thinking this weird thing just now. What if every time, like, you know, with the different canon DCEU movies, they're all separated and such, like, if that ever happened. Like, at the beginning of each movie where it's a crossover, you see Dr. Manhattan take these 2 orbs of different universes. Like, say, for example, the Flash movie that has its own self-contained universe in it. And then you get, like, the Batman movie with its own self-contained universe in it. And he just fuses them together and be like, boom, here's Flashpoint. Like, every beginning of a movie that has a crossover.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could. Well, because, I mean... I don't know, I feel like that's a little...
comic.
Yeah. Well, because I know, because I know they brought in Dr. Manhattan for Rebirth, and honestly, and I don't think people want to admit this, I think that whole situation with Dr. Manhattan, I don't think that would be going on if Zack Snyder's Watchmen hadn't come out and like brought Watchmen back into the conversation.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Like, honestly, like, I don't think, like, which is why, like I almost want to, like Watchmen to me.
The door.
Watchmen to me. I know we're getting a little off topic, but Watchmen to me, especially because the 9-year anniversary was yesterday of the release. That movie to me is so well done. I just, anytime I think of like the Watchmen characters, I just immediately go to the movie. Because, I mean, like, I tried getting into the comic series, and I'm just like, Like, just, I don't know. It's kind of like for me, like, reading, like, The Dark Knight Returns. It's, like, this revered thing where it's like, okay, like, I can see why some people revere it as this. I don't necessarily agree, but, you know, whatever. But just with the film, I just think Zack's impact with those characters and what he was able to do, which already, like, Watchmen was ahead of its time when it came out. Like, I think if Watchmen came out today, I think it might be talked about more. I still think it would have been divisive because it's Zack Snyder, but I think Watchmen coming out when it did, and like when, like, right when the MCU was starting, right in the middle of the year that Dark Knight came out, when the superhero movie universe of film was really exploding, and Watchmen was kind of there in the middle of that.
I gotta go for a minute.
Like,
I'll be back in a second.
Okay, you know, yeah, that's fine. I just think like Watchmen kind of being there to kind of help kick off all of these superhero films, like at the peak of when they were all starting. I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting because I don't think he's ever going to get proper credit for that, and that's kind of shitty, and that kind of casts negative omens about the eventual, like, anyone actually like admitting the impact of the DCEU movies and what they actually did. I mean, like, we have people turning a corner, we have people being like contrarian now and being like, oh, well, you know, like, the DC movies are better than you think they are. You know, there's actually logic to this, and like a lot of people you know, basically Columbusing them for the fandom and being like, well, they're actually not bad. Who would have thought?
I kind of want to find those people and beat them because
it's terrible. It's the worst thing.
They're bandwagoners in the end,
I mean, yeah, but and that's the thing, is they're just being contrary to be contrary. Like, they're just like, well, everyone hates Zack Snyder, so I'm going to figure out a way to like him. And it's like, wow, what a shitty reason to like someone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that they're just, I think that, I'm worried that because The Watchmen doesn't get the credit that it deserves, for the impact that it had, that we're looking toward a future where everybody just sort of pretends like, Zack Snyder isn't the reason that Logan happened, and Zack Snyder isn't the reason that the MCU is changing for the better, and that a lot of these things aren't because of his impact. And that's shitty because he deserves a lot of that credit, in my opinion. I think that many of the films that are coming out lately would definitely never have happened unless he got Man of Steel made.
And also, like Captain America: Civil War wasn't originally going to be that until they announced that Zack Snyder was doing Batman v Superman. Like, the Russo brothers have said, oh, well, once we found out it was Batman v Superman, we thought, oh, now's a good idea to turn it into Civil War because we think fans will like it.
Well, I don't know if that's like a positive impact. Civil War was pretty shitty, but
it's a negative.
No, but I mean, in terms of his impact on these films, he has impacted. That's my
Yeah, no, he's way more influential in a general way than anybody gives him credit for, and I think that's really sad because he takes a lot of risks, and I think most of them pay off, but they don't pay off in a way that actually, is validating to an artist. They don't pay off.
Alright, I'm back.
No, I honestly cannot think of anyone, like any artist, any creator, as on the level of Zack Snyder. Like, okay, maybe he's not like the best, most well-regarded filmmaker around or whatever, but like he put so much effort into like making art of his movies, and he doesn't confine himself to like the auteur genre. Like, he just does something pretty amazing, and he like puts like so much into his movies, and like, a lot of directors nowadays do like to put quite a bit of substance into their movies, but really not to the extent of the detail and the care and the love that Zack does. And like, also on top of that, he's just so genuinely good in like literally every way.
If you look at Batman v Superman,
his messages are so good.
But if you look at Batman v Superman, like, we are still finding things in that film literally 2 years later. Like,
he's creating like incredible works of art, and I'm just give me Zack Snyder movies for the rest of my life, okay? Just let him do the entire DC universe. I will. God, oh my God, just let him make every movie to ever be made from now on. I need everything on that level.
I just want to be wealthy enough to put up some little movie studio somewhere and just front his movies and just let him do whatever he wants.
How much money do I need to pay Warner Brothers or something to just put Zack in charge of every movie from now on? I'm sorry, like, I've been completely spoiled by Zack Snyder movies. Nothing will ever reach the level of Man of Steel or BVS for me in terms of just sheer substance, in terms of like sheer.
It's crazy how that is, though, because that's exactly how I feel. Like, when I see other movies, I'm like, does this have the same kind of depth as Man of Steel and BVS?
Yeah, that's me. He's totally ruined me for everything else.
I totally get that.
I think it's interesting, like, the amount of conversation that Zack has able to create with this films. Like, other than maybe like Stanley Kubrick or some of these other filmmakers, can you honestly say any other modern filmmaker has created such long-lasting conversations about their films? Like, think of any other filmmaker today. Can anyone else say that? You can say like, I don't know. I can't remember any directors off the top of my head. Or even look at like
divisive. Like whatever it's like, Del Toro is a bit like pretty close in terms of that, but I think like and he's also pretty amazing, like lovely person and all that, and his movies are pretty. But also they don't reach that level of controversy and conversation that Zack's movies are. I mean, like, like, people still write about Sucker Punch and Watchmen even now.
Yeah.
You can't go a single article about comic book movies without somebody bringing up BVS at some point. Like, come on.
The thing that's amazing to me is that, like, it's it's making that sort of controversy without actually being like actively offensive. And that's something that's very hard to accomplish. It's very hard to make people disagree about something that doesn't actively hurt anyone. That's not actively damaging. I mean, like, fanboys will pretend that that Zack Snyder killed their dog, but at the end of the day, nobody got hurt by those.
So aggressive.
Nobody actually got hurt, but everyone has a strong and intense opinion about these films, and I think that's something to strive toward as an artist.
Yeah, people still talk about BVS and Man of Steel more than they talk about Justice League, and that really is saying something. Like, people talk more about these two heroes, these three heroes technically with Wonder Woman, more than they talk about the entire team of film. So that really says something about Zack's ability.
This is the reason why, if coming back to Nick's original question, if I had to choose between Man of Steel 2 and Justice League by Zack Snyder, I would choose Snyder cut of Justice League, because Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman deserve a much better introduction into DCEU than they got.
Yeah, that is true.
That's what I was going to say, and I was just biding my time. You said it for me. Thank you. That's exactly what I feel.
Yeah, that is true.
Going back to the question, I have two minds of this. Is that on the first end, like, as a Superman fan, I would rather he do Man of Steel 2 because I want him to protect the franchise. And my interest in Clark, and my interest in Lois, and my interest in protecting that franchise from the bullshit that it's been suffering for the last 10 years. Or basically 80 years, ever since it left the hands of Jerry and Joe, in my opinion. All of that, crap that it's been suffering, Zack is a really good buffer against that crap. But on the other end, I don't necessarily think that Zack Snyder's best mental health move is to put himself in Warner Brothers' hands again. That was an extremely abusive situation. And for me, I think it'd be much easier to send him away to his editing studio, let him make the best possible cut of what they have right now, and close this chapter of his life, for better or worse. And that is just because, like, I value him as an artist, and I value him as a person, and I think that what Warner Brothers did is not something you come back from.
Yeah.
Let him do a Dragon Ball Z movie.
Right.
Let him do a Dragon Ball Z movie. I'd take anything he's willing to do. I'd love for him to have another franchise.
I just want to see the last photograph. That's what I'm looking forward to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just such a tragedy, right? Like that like Zack, he's like the biggest nerd ever. He's the most dedicated, beautiful nerd ever, and then he tries to make something for this industry that he's like clearly such a good, true fan of, and like they just end up spitting him out like that. Like, come on,
His impact is going to reverberate though too, because he staffed this franchise with a bunch of like-minded, sweet, vulnerable nerds. And that's really important to remember, is that every casting decision so far has been a Zack Snyder decision, and all of those casting decisions have been the right call.
Yeah. So, how would you guys feel if Zack Snyder? Now, I'm not saying he would be part of it, but how would you feel if Zack Snyder were to be asked by Kevin Feige to make a Marvel film?
Oh boy.
No.
Like, he has creative control of this Marvel film, and he was allowed to literally, like Kevin Feige just said, go crazy.
Is it Thor? That's
I was thinking more Moon Knight.
Oh, is it something totally different? Something off book would be interesting.
Like they said, hey Zack, we want you to add a more realistic aspect to it. They're like, Zack, we want you to add a realistic aspect to it. Can you do that? And he says, hold my beer. Basically like that.
I would love for him to come save my other alien boyfriend, Thor, but
yeah, I honestly I don't know if I would want that for him. Like honestly, I feel like even like, if he was given creative control, that's one thing, but also I almost for his own benefit, I don't know if I want him tied down to another cinematic franchise.
Yeah.
Like with a huge
there's
budget.
a lack of control that gets thrown into the mix there, and it's a little bit iffy.
Yeah.
I think something really unique about Zack's career is that even though he's like an art history and his films clearly have so much depth in it, he's always stuck to like, you know, fan stuff, you know. I think pretty obviously it's like the stuff that he really loves, you know, like just really comic books, movies and stuff like that. I mean, like that's pretty much been all the movies he's been making, right? And that kind of
genre.
And he's brought something really magical to that genre, you know, like adding that depth. And while like I totally agree about like not wanting him to be tied down, because like the culture of these films and like the studios that produce them is really toxic and really don't deserve someone like Zack Snyder working for them. But like I really hate to see him like be edged out of the chances to like adapt and recreate this kind of these forms of media just because of like studio.
I think there's something really powerful in the idea that he brings to the genre, which is that you should take explosions seriously in a broad way. He really has this operating mechanism of what if we took all of this action nonsense? What if we took all of this genre stuff and we took it really super seriously, and we really thought about the ramifications, and we really thought about the real world effects? And I think that there's something I think there's something feminist about that praxis. I think there's something really that has an element of justice to it in that praxis that really lets me in to these films, in the same way that Mad Max did, in the same way that a lot of other that a lot of those fringe films in the genre have done, is sort of invite a wide audience and invite people who aren't necessarily the typical target audience. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that honestly the industry is really threatened by it. I think a lot of what the backlash that Zack gets is the industry is really threatened by the idea that we might take Cape Comics seriously, that we might take action movies seriously, that these movies might be, you know, at some point contenders for Academy Awards, that they might actually be, you know, able to be art films, that you could have art films be genre and have genre films be art and have those things overlap. For whatever reason, I think the industry is really threatened by that. And I think it's a good reason to keep doing it. I think it's the best reason for Zack to keep operating in this genre, and I hope they don't chase him out.
Yeah. Okay, I think we talked a lot about this stuff, but God, I want to talk about Joss leaving that film. So bad right now.
You beat me to it.
I'm sorry, it's like really late, so I can't like evil villain cackle louder, but just imagine me cackling like 10 times louder, because that's just what I feel inside. Oh my god, I am so happy.
I honestly, I've like the day it happened, it literally was like the highlight of my day. And the funniest thing I saw were all these articles that were like, bad news for DC fans, Joss Whedon is off Batgirl. as if we wanted him in the first place. Like, like, how can you be so ignorant to believe, okay, especially after the reaction of Justice League, to be like, DC fans wanted Joss Whedon in the universe. No. Like, even like people who weren't DC fans, just women or people who were logical, did not want Joss Whedon involved in this movie. Like, when that happened, like, Tumblr was throwing a party, Twitter was throwing a party, I was throwing my own little party in my head.
Off.
Like,
I was gonna say.
I mean, even half of the MCU fandom virulently hates Joss Whedon is the thing. Like, that's the really weird thing, is that, like, he has a terrible reputation in fan circles. He has burnt his bridges on both sides. Like half the MCU fans remember what happened with Ultron and remember the giant tantrum he threw and how he fucking quit Twitter after that shit and like all of that. Like they're like the people who've been in the MCU for a while, the new kids in the MCU are like, Joss is the greatest, he made the Avengers, and it's like, oh honey, like things have happened since then. Like you need to catch up on what's going on. But like half the MCU fandom hates him. The entire DCEU fandom hates him. Like it's not hard to take the temperature of like social opinion, and it's just so crazy that they're so tone deaf to it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that now for Batgirl we can finally have the direction that we were always wanting, and that's having a female director direct a movie about a female superhero. It only makes
imagine.
And a potentially disabled, depending on how they treat the character, a potentially disabled character too. Like
oh my god, like I feel like Barbara Gordon is like literally the most sensitive character for anyone to be handling, especially because you know the way she's been really shittily treated with like the Killing Joke and all that garbage. Like it's so important that you get her right, especially because like she's the first like real female member of the Bat family. Like if you want to introduce her, you have to be really careful. You know, you can't just end up with another Killing Joke movie, cough cough, having sex with Batman, cough cough.
Oh god.
Oh god.
We don't.
I mean, half of the reason why I was why I had so much trepidation about Barbara being the Batgirl that we use is because I just don't want to fight with people every day for 3 years about the Killing Joke. I just don't. Like, I don't have the energy to keep cracking that open and explaining to random people on the internet why there's no excuse for any of that shit. And we're done with it and we're moving on.
Yeah. Can we just jump straight in and have Cassandra Cain be our Batgirl and then like have like that would be
that would be such a cool idea. Like Oracle, like it's not like Batgirl film not being the Batgirl film not being Barbara per se.
A youngish female mentor and a younger Batgirl.
Okay, and also the fact that like that's the amazing thing about the fact that they've established Batman to having been doing this for 20 years. You can jump in to Cassandra Cain and having Barbara already be Oracle because Batman's already been Batman for 20 plus years. You have a perfect opportunity to do that with Cassandra Cain or whatever.
That.
Like,
we don't even need to address whether or not the Killing Joke events ever actually happened.
Just say she's Oracle. You don't have to say anything about the fact how she was even paralyzed. Just say, this is Oracle. This is Barbara. She used to be Batgirl. That's all you need. Literally, all you need.
That's what being disabled is actually like. Nobody asks for your origin story every day when you wake up, so it's not a big deal. Like, she's in a wheelchair. Wow, that's really incidental to the plot. It has nothing to do with it.
Oh my god.
How fresh would that be? How normal would that be? Like, just have her in a wheelchair and don't necessarily have a conversation about it. Who cares why she's in a wheelchair? She's in a wheelchair. That's her literal existence.
Okay, but which Batgirl would you want? Would you want Cassandra Cain or Stephanie?
Cassandra. Come on, my Asian representation right here.
Cassandra fits the universe better. I mean, like, you know, there's cool stuff about Stephanie, and I'm a big spoiler fan. But Cassandra fits the tone of the universe perfectly. She deserves her shot because she's one of the best she is the best Batgirl that's ever happened. Like, she's an obvious ascendant to the cowl. Like, she's the person that you would want to be Batman.
But Batman, like Bruce has said himself that he would want Cassandra to succeed him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All the Bat family. And
especially if we're going to have especially if the rumors are anything near true and Affleck wants out, we could make a dick Batman, and then Cassandra would be the next logical choice. We could have Nightwing evolve into Batman, and then have him have a different Batgirl that than is traditional. I think that would be fantastic.
And then there could also be a Robin, maybe.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to see a Robin. Like I just want to see an acknowledgement of Jason Todd first of all, like a legit acknowledgement.
Poor Jason.
I know. Like he's never like I don't think he's ever gonna get fair treatment in any universe.
Sorry.
I know. Like
fans.
Yeah.
Fans want the Red Hood storyline so much, and that animated movie went over so well. It's illogical not to take a shot.
Oh wait, Danielle, did you read my fanfic I outlined? Basically, I came up with this outline of like how you could combine like Tim's origin story. You could introduce Dick and cover the Red Robin plotline all in one movie. And like one Batman-centric movie. Have you guys read it? I think I said
no, not yet.
Like you guys might not have read it. It was just like an outline, but like yeah, it was amazing. Okay, anyway.
You should send it to the group chat.
I know.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, honestly, I've been wanting that Red Hood storyline for so long. Cause also that story naturally fits the DCEU. Like it
does.
Like, but I've seen so many people be like, "Oh, well, you can't have the same argument because Batman's a murderer in this universe and blah blah blah."
And it's like, yes, you can, because he can
use that by calling him a hypocrite. Yeah,
Nick, I hope you don't mind. I go on a tangent. So I think how they could actually do it is that rather than saying, "I've never been to that dark place," you can have Batman say, "Jason, I know what it's like. I've been to that dark place before. I've seen it. I almost killed someone who was a good guy. But I came back from it because I had people who brought me from it and let me be the person to bring you from it."
Yes.
Something like that.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, guys, I sent it to the group.
Okay.
But also, yeah, like I will just keep on holding this as my ideal Batman movie until the Batman movie comes out.
Yeah, if it comes out at this point.
If it comes out, you're hoping.
Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just I feel bad for Affleck and Matt Reeves at this point because it's just like. The media just won't leave. Media and fans just won't leave them alone. It's just like, give them a fucking break. Like they're still in pre-production. Like at this point, like I feel sorry more for Ben because Ben's been in this situation where he signed up to play this deep and layered and different version of Batman that we haven't seen before, and then Joss and Warner Brothers were like, be like Tony Stark, because that's what we want, because that's what's gonna make us money. And he's like, and you can tell the entirety of the reshoots of Justice League. Now, Zack Snyder parts, he's perfectly fine. I think he uses his performances as well as Batman v Superman. It's the reshoots that you can tell he's mailing the fuck out of his performance. Like, he mailed that in like 3 weeks ago. He's been chilling since then, not caring if he gets a response in the mail. Like, he's...
even in Suicide Squad, he was like top tier Batman acting.
Yes, like in a movie that wasn't even his. Like that's the weird thing. Like, and just that end credit scene from Suicide Squad, you just feel the intensity of his performance just in that one fucking scene. And in Justice League,
I keep coming back here, but like after Daredevil, I can't handle what we did to him again. I just can't handle it. Every single time I think about it, I just picture like future Ben Affleck going back in time to like post Daredevil Ben Affleck and being like, good news, there's gonna be a superhero movie that's worse than this. Bad news, you're still in it. You're in it, and it's like, oh god.
Leave
Why
the
are
poor
we
man
doing
alone.
this to this man? I hurt so much for him watching that shitty cut of Justice League and all the terrible shots, all of the terrible takes that they included in that film of Ben Affleck clearly screwing up and them being like, yeah, that looks good to me. Like, no.
And then they got the scenes of Batman just getting his ass handed to him a lot of times against some enemies that you wouldn't think he'd get his ass handed to him that easily.
One thing, random thug who was stealing things. Really?
Look, like humiliating Batman is a time-honored tradition, and I'm very for it. But like, there's a difference between humiliating Batman and humiliating the actor who's playing Batman, and I think that Justice League crosses the line. I think that there's like, let's all laugh at Batman. He thinks he's so serious. It's cute. And then there's like, let's make him be like an arch, weird, exaggerated version of this character, and include every goofy face he makes in any take we take ever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so you it's the perfect analogy is like going from the scene in Batman v Superman when they're fighting, when Superman's when he's hitting Superman in the jaw, and he's realizing that, oh shit, now I'm screwed because Superman isn't feeling anything. That's like fun humiliation, because that's Batman realizing like, oh shit, like I'm screwed.
With the little hands that he does, like, I didn't mean it. I scream every time. It's so funny.
Like, okay, like that's a perfect example. You can have that, but to him being
scripted.
And then
I believe that was not a scripted scene. That was just Ben going, okay, wait a minute, hold on now.
No, and then to go to that, to being like, to being tossed around by Superman and being on a CGI screen, being like, yep, something's bleeding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, he is tall. I mean, they make him so amazingly stupid. Suddenly, he isn't able to put two and two together and is surprised when he gets
and also, can I say, can Warner Brothers really did they really believe that we couldn't tell the difference between the Zack shots and the Josh shots of Ben? Because obviously Ben put on weight. Ben is heavier in the Josh shots compared to the other ones. And also, and I'm not even judging his weight.
He didn't expect to come back. I mean, that's the thing, he was done. And I would have done the same thing. Oh, thank goodness, I don't have to keep such rigid standards anymore. Oh, I'm going to relax.
Yeah.
I got some time before the promo, so, oh, crap. You want a what? I mean, none of them expected that.
This is the kind of training that they're doing. The kind of training that they're doing is like, oh, we've wrapped shooting. I'm going to sit down with an entire pie. And that's my life. Like, that's normal. That's their normal, it's a little abusive to your body, but it is the way that they train. So the idea that he's put on a little bit of weight is totally natural and probably better for his body than the reverse, which is trying to stay in that shape all the time.
Yes. He didn't.
Also, dad bod. He's probably eating vicarious macaroni and cheese.
I would.
But you're right, Nick. It's so obvious because he didn't expect to have to come back and do more, and then suddenly he's back and doing more, and it's horrible. I mean, if I was him, I would have eaten a pie every night during those reshoots. Just sabotage it, because I'd have been like, this is crap. This is total crap, and I'm so depressed I have to come back and do this, and Zach's not here. Where's my pie? I need pie. But he didn't expect to come back. It was really obvious. Obviously, Henry didn't. I mean, he had a
Since you brought up...
Yeah. It's just... it's so painful, especially because Ben's Batman is a man of a very few but very intimidating words. Take, for example, a very first Comic-Con footage with I am real when it's useful, or the first trailer when he gets into the Nightcrawler, he says, my turn, instead of, oh, sorry guys, I didn't bring my sword. It was so painful to watch. Oh my god.
It was.
So anxious. It's so anxious. Like, why do you need to make so much noise? What are you afraid of in the silence? Like, what is making this anxiety happen? Like, that's the weirdest thing about me. To me, is every time I look at these scenes, I'm just like, have the confidence to shut up. Have the confidence to be quiet for a minute and let these characters be the characters. And I feel like it's an underconfidence in the actors, and I take it very personally. Every single time I watch it, I'm like, it's heartbreaking that you don't trust your actors enough to not have them constantly speaking. It's heartbreaking that we took these incredibly, incredibly talented cast, and you won't even let them look at the camera for more than 15 seconds without a one-liner. That's a mess. That's you prioritizing your art over the art of other people, and that is why people like Joss Whedon should not work on collaborative projects. That is exactly why.
Yes, and it's sad because they already proved in previous films how amazing they can be if given the chance, and so it really speaks to Joss's lack of ability to learn. I don't know how else to put it, but he can't look at anything else and go, oh, that's really cool. I should kind of stretch my boundaries a little bit, I should try something different and see what happens instead of no, I know the best way. My way is the best way. I refuse to take on new information. Just do what I say. And that just no. So he is in the end a one-trick pony.
He does things.
Yeah.
Poor Henry. Poor Henry, because Henry's been getting a lot of slack ever since Man of Steel when it comes to his acting. People keep saying, "Oh, Henry's a stale actor. He can't act as such." But it's yes, he is. He's clearly showing acting chops. But it's and now with Justice League, I think the heat's kind of off of him a little bit more because he played the Superman everyone wanted. But I still feel like there are people who are "Oh, his acting is so wooden," and it's not wooden. It just depends on the director.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Superman, I know this is probably off topic from the DCEU, but can we please talk about that Brainiac pick that came out for Krypton?
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we'll talk about this briefly because I want to get to some of the other stuff too. Krypton. You could tell originally they were gonna have it set in the DCEU. They were totally gonna. The original, the leaked trailer that came out almost a year ago now. I remember when it came out, they were using the DCEU Superman logo. They were using the exact same designs for Krypton and all this stuff. And it was gonna be so interesting. And it's just and then Justice League came out, and then it's oh no, you've changed the entire look of the show. We're using the classic Superman symbol. We're giving him some shitty cape. And then here comes Adam Strange with the baseball cap saying, "Oh, now you gotta save Superman because something's coming." And it's just I'm still gonna watch the show, but it's come on,
really when I lost interest.
I just feel
I'm not saying I won't watch it. I wasn't as excited for it. I was oh, that's too.
I just feel there was an original pitch, and that original pitch was interesting and new and fresh, and then at some point during production someone came along and said, "Okay, but what about Game of Thrones in space?" and executives lost their fucking minds because they were "We don't have a Game of Thrones. We want a Game of Thrones. That's exactly what we want. Yeah, we want Game of Thrones money." And then they just sort of decided that this show was going to be Krypton only Game of Thrones, and that's what it looks like so far, and that's the way they're promoting it anyway. I hope that that's not the case because it sounds really.
If they do, I'm out. I mean, I admit it.
I heard from early reviews that this is kind of I heard from one early review. I think you all saw it. It was one review that just titled, "If you liked Man of Steel, then you probably won't like this one." So
I thought the article said.
I saw that tweet. And somebody had tweeted, "Guess what, bitch."
No, I could have sworn. I could have sworn that article said, or maybe I read it wrong. I could have sworn that it said, "Oh, if you didn't like Man of Steel, you won't like Krypton." I thought that's what it was. Am I?
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And we were awesome sauce. I guess we'll like it then.
Yes.
So I mean, I think that's just that's the thing though, is that I don't trust them anymore because all they ever see is tone. Basically what they're saying is that this is a lot like Game of Thrones. That's what it sounded like to me. And so I was well, yeah, it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be kind of gritty. It's gonna have that feel. But it's just the Man of Steel is so much more than that. And I hope that Krypton keeps the fact that it's so much more than that and really actually pays homage to the franchise and what it stands for. And I don't have any faith that Warner Brothers is on that team anymore. Yeah. Especially since they finally freaking greenlit a Lois Lane series, but then they just sort of tacked Lex Luthor onto it. What is
she's not
why?
To carry it by herself.
Exactly. Make sure that there's a sympathetic. Yeah,
you can do a lot of good
redemption white boy.
Yeah, you can do a lot of good stories with Lois Lane, especially from what I've seen from the DCEU and a little bit of Smallville. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with Lois Lane because she has so much connections to.
Yep.
I didn't even know this before, but is it true that Lois Lane literally has connections to U.S. government and military people?
Yeah, well, her dad's a general. Her dad's a general.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Like if you look at Smallville, if you look at like most interpretations of the character, like her dad's a U.S. general, and she
uses that to network. Like, whoa, it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like it's funny because even in the show Supergirl, like they brought in Lois Lane's dad and her sister, and they were both members of the military. And of course, Supergirl went on to completely forget that those characters ever existed once they moved to the CW, because CW doesn't give a shit about Lois Lane or anyone in her family. But yeah, so I think there's a lot you can do. I'm gonna be very cautious about what they do with that show. Well, also in general, like nothing. I would love to be. I love for it to just be a Lois Lane working at the Daily Planet centric show. I don't need Lex.
I know, wouldn't that be cool?
But my thing is,
we're having a conversation about what journalism and what media is supposed to be. We're having a conversation in this nation right now about what we expect from media journalists, and like making a show at the center of that is totally topical, superpowers or not. I just think it's nonsense to be like, well, it's really important that we like throw Lex in here as an appendage and make sure that like, we have a second lead, and they'll probably throw in a bunch of like I don't know, like meteor freaks or something, and it's just like, why? Like, I don't understand why you need
I'm scared
all this support.
I'm scared they'll do what Gotham did, in which it started off as just the characters, and then they start bringing in all these Batman villains left and right.
Oh,
like,
for real.
No other
And
reason.
center.
That's what I was gonna bring up, is that like I love the idea of a Lois Lane centric show, but I'm getting kind of fatigued with all these prequel shows. Like I don't mind a Lois Lane centric show, but I'm tired of the prequel shows. Like between Gotham, like Krypton, this. I loved Smallville. It's
If they could tell a prequel story without like constantly masturbating to the person who's coming up on the horizon, I would be fine with it. But the thing is that like they're just I can't think of a non-gross metaphor. They're just splooging all over the screen, like crazy. Like it's just so ugly. Like Gotham has become so ugly because it really is about Batman, and it could have been about the city. It could have been about Gordon. It could have been about police corruption. It could have been about all this really interesting shit that actually matters to comic books, but they were like, oh, not enough superpowers. It's really important that everything revolve around superpowers. Like, I don't actually care.
How are they going to do that with the Metropolis series, though? Because Superman's not even a concept in Metropolis.
That's the thing, is that like Superman is supposed to be the inciting incident for all of these, superpowered
They will do it
to come out, but they will
not do it. They don't know how to use these characters outside of that superhero. They don't know how.
They don't respect comics because they don't respect the medium, and they don't think that comics are capable of anything more than basic mainstream cape shit. And the thing is that there's a bunch of media out there that's focused on the ancillary parts of this. I think that was one of the reasons why I was so excited about the idea of Powerless, and then even in Powerless was get around it. But Powerless was a really cool idea. Like, what a really excellent idea.
Well, also, Powerless was something that the original trailer. I remember the original trailer for Powerless teased something completely different than what the show actually became.
They teased an insurance agency. I was totally there for that. I was really excited.
I was so into it.
I was like, what a great idea. Oh my gosh,
And then it became...
they got there and it wasn't even that.
Yeah, then it literally became, here's Bruce Wayne's shitty cousin that no one ever cared about, and now they're working for Wayne, and I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah. We didn't need that. I didn't want that. I totally wanted just the average everyday
people. We have
people.
no interest beyond the stupid fandom connections, and it's like you can tell 100 different stories in this whole universe without ever touching superpowers. Like, and I think that, honestly, I think this is one of the ways that the MCU does a pretty good job occasionally, like sort of like edging around the superpower thing. I just think that I don't understand why we have to pile it on every single time. We have to be like, well, like this is where Batman is, and this is where Superman is, and it's really important to establish the locations of all of these characters and make sure that they're really interconnected. And it's like, what if you just told the story, of what it's like to be a normal person in this new and terrible world? Like, what if that were interesting? And the unfortunate thing is the people who are hired to work on these don't find that interesting.
Yeah.
It sucks because I would find that fascinating, interesting, and think of all the amazing stories you could tell. I mean, this is what frustrates me. It feels like they don't know how to actually tell stories, and they're just trying to hit the boxes as usual, hit the target that will get people to watch, whether or not it's a good story. And it's just, I am so sick of media like that. I could just puke. It has been... they just don't even know what they're doing anymore, it feels like, and I wear out fast. So
I wanted a Jim Gordon show where it was just Jim Gordon dealing with the corrupt police, like something like Batman Year One, but you didn't have Batman in it. It was just Jim Gordon dealing with police corruption, and that would have been.
That's what I wanted.
Yes, what a cool thing it would have been, because then he really is the guy that Batman needs to approach to kind of be in cahoots with. I mean, that's great.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, also,
and he got there on his own,
Yeah. Well, come back to
the
whole
see the character arc that he was going to make. Like, the original Gordon is very different from the Gordon that we knew, so we were really interested in how we were going to build this new character.
Yeah.
And they had Donald Logue, who's a freaking genius and could have carried half of that series for the rest of forever. Like, why didn't they just lean on him? I don't understand why not. He was brilliant. He kind of upstaged the main character for the majority of his scenes. They need to work on that, but...
Okay, but one thing I want to bring up, too, is that, like, because I know you guys know more about this than I do, because I haven't read these books. Aren't there those, like, Lois Lane young adult novels that are essentially...
This is what I wanted to bring up. What would...
Lois was, like, Fallout and all that stuff, right?
What would have perfect is that if Metropolis was a live-action adaptation of Gwen de Bourne's trilogy novel, and then in season 2 and further on expand her DC universe from Lois Lane's perspective.
Yes, what's really interesting about the Fallout books is that what's really interesting about the Fallout books, though, is that Superman is a character in them. He's just ancillary. He just literally matters less. He's less central to the plot. And for the first book, he's an online presence entirely, and
like how he was
it's
in Supergirl.
Tragically adorable and absolutely heartbreaking in every single fucking scene. Like it's a brilliant setup, and you get just enough Superman to locate Clark, but it's still a Lois-centric series. It's still a series where we're getting to know Lois and we're caring about what Lois cares about, and we're focused on that character. And I don't know why they wouldn't just adapt those books.
I agree. That would be awesome.
Lois goes to Gotham. Lois going to Gotham in this TV show would be cool.
What scares me from current premise to Metropolis is the inclusion of Lex Luthor as the secondary main character, because I'm so afraid that they're going to resurrect my worst nightmare that was the first season of Lois and Clark series, with romance between Lois and Lex.
Oh god.
No, thank
what
you.
A mess.
I've only ever seen 2 episodes of that show.
Able to stop themselves. That's all they know how to do. Two people on screen together. We should make them a relationship. We gotta introduce the will they won't they. I agree. That's why I kind of haven't even gotten interested in Metropolis, because I don't think that they can avoid doing that. They're probably going to. They can't stop themselves.
Yeah.
I've already written 6 or 7 scenarios in the way that this series could work, and I am pretty sure they're going to do none of them, and it's just getting worse and worse. Every single time I come up with
realized that too.
Here's a new way
Metropolis a writer is actually bad, because you're right.
It's terrible.
What you think could be really amazing, and then they come out with something that is and I'm not saying that I'm astounding or anything. I'm sure you feel the same way, Danielle. It's not like you're thinking I'm so amazing. It's just that, hey, cool, I came up with something good. Okay, these guys are professionals. They should be able to do it even better, right? Holy crap, it's subpar.
Yeah, it's not that we're so good.
It's weird. Suddenly you're okay, but you guys, do you see what a weak choice that was?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that we're so good. I mean, I'm sure that we're both really good.
I expect them to be better.
But it's that they're so bad. They are so bad.
Thank you.
That is what's depressing. Like, it's so hard because, like, it's like, how did you get your job? Like, for me, it's just like I get so mad because I'm like, I'm super underemployed, and I miss publishing opportunities all the time, and then there's these dudes who just sort of like waltz in and they're like, hey, like, if I check box A, box B, and box C, I can keep this job for eternity. And it's like, why?
And this is why fanfic writers are...
You're a trained professional. You should be way better at this than me, you know?
Yes.
Yes. This is why fanfic writers are so important to canon sometimes. Sometimes.
But you're right. You know, there's been amazing stories that I've read, and I'm like, holy crap, how come, like, look at this intricate, amazing plot with fabulous characterization, and, like, look at this.
So much more.
Why are you not doing this on the show? You know?
Yeah.
It's just, and sometimes a story straight up doesn't fit the show. Like, they'll take the aspect they like out of it and be like, and make it all about the romance. But you know it's never going to be that way because the show itself is about something else and has a little bit of romance in it. And so you know, of course they're not going to do that on the show. So you never spend your time reading that and going, why aren't they doing this? You go, yeah, that was nice,
lately,
you know. But
lately,
then
though, like, that's a really good example.
You know, yeah.
That's a really good example, though, that, like, we say that. Like, we look at fanfic and we say, like, oh, well, obviously they're not going to do that on the show. But, like, look what Arrow has turned into.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
It's the worst fanfic I've ever read.
Oh, God,
You're
yeah.
laughing out, guys. Those are the worst moments when you go, oh, that was...
And honestly, this is the sad thing to admit. I know we've gotten really off topic and we're not talking about the DCEU anymore, but whatever. Welcome to the DCEU podcast where we never talk about anything DCEU anymore. Whatever. No, so honestly, that's the crazy thing is, like, honestly, okay, up until season 3 of Arrow, I was an Odyssey shipper. I thought that relationship was really cute. I didn't mind seeing it, but
I was there too. When Felicity was an entire character.
Yeah.
When Felicity was a fully developed human being, I was totally into it. I was like, that's kind of cool.
And not just like
he
a
wasn't ever
convenient
very nice to her, so it didn't make any sense, and she always deserved better. But, like, whatever. What she wants is what she wants.
Yeah, but now it's like, I mean, I don't hate her as much as I did, but season 3, by the end of it, I was like, other than Laurel and Nyssa, I couldn't give two shits about any of these people anymore.
Oh my god, exactly.
I did not care for Arrow until John Constantine came on that one episode, and then I just left it again.
Oh my god. Okay. When Sarah Vance got killed off Arrow, I just pretty much vowed that, like, unless they resurrected her, I would just never watch the show ever again. And, you know, they did, but I still don't watch the show.
Well, I mean, well, they didn't really...
They bounced Sarah off of Arrow.
Yeah,
and Legends of Tomorrow is brilliant. So.
It is. Legends of Tomorrow is honestly, like... I don't necessarily always love, like, the cheesy superhero stuff, but Legends of Tomorrow is... Because it knows what it is and it's not trying to appease the shippers or to be this dark, serious thing and be like the Dark Knight trilogy. It's just ridiculous, stupid, D-list heroes doing random shit and fucking up the timeline, and it's amazing. And you got...
Best thing that Legends of Tomorrow ever did was lean into this shit. They leaned into it, and I think it's brilliant. I love Legends of Tomorrow, and I can admit that, like, 80% of the episodes are weird, cheesy kind of garbage. But, like, it's great junk food. Oh my god, it's fantastic junk food. It's like eating McDonald's. You know it's not very good for your brain, but it's fine because it tastes awesome.
And one good thing about Legends of Tomorrow that I noticed is that not only does it have, like, this funniness to it, but you can also see that it has a very good sense of representation to it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Like, the representation in this series is actually good because you got different races, you have different sexualities.
And just casually, just like sort of like, oh, there just might be some people who are like freaking bisexual on the show, and like it's not a big deal.
And now they have like and now they have like an Arabic superhero in Zari, and that's awesome. And granted, I'm not caught up on the show, but
like, I mean, they're bound to make mistakes with that stuff. They're bound. they're bound to screw that kind of stuff up, but like God bless them for trying, and God bless them for like making the effort. And that effort, I think I totally appreciate Legends of Tomorrow's effort consistently.
Yeah, like it's the one show honestly that like look, by the end of the first season, okay, I'll admit I hate what they did to Hawk Girl. I hate what they did to that character.
Yeah, that's a mess.
Weak,
yeah, like that was the weakest part of that. That has been the weakest part of the show. I'll admit, because they took this badass character who could have been stood on her own, and they just turned her into, oh, if Hawkman's dead, what other male person can she be with?
Oh my gosh, I know.
And let's make her entire existence about being with a man, and that's literally all she became. It was never about Hawk Girl. It was about she's either being
it's about Hawk
like
Girl
forced,
and Ray, or Hawk Girl and Hawkman. You know,
or it's being forced into a relationship with Vandal Savage. Like it was garbage.
You're right. You're right.
And I felt so bad for the actress because it was never her fault. It was the writers not figuring. That's why they wrote her and Hawkman off the show, because they literally had no idea what to do with them. Like they had two.
Probably because they wrote Hawkman as a fucking asshole, and they should have not done that in the first place.
Part of that is that Mark Guggenheim does not know how to write healthy relationships.
He just showed up, and I was like,
so once they get to that place, he doesn't know what to do. So he either breaks it, makes it unhealthy again, or he gets rid of him. He doesn't know how to write a healthy relationship ever.
Yeah. Like honestly, like the Hawkman in Smallville was so like.
Oh my god, hot. Just hot as hell. I'm just gonna I'm not even gonna mince words about that. He was so fucking fine. And like not just like the actor who I do have a crush on, because we had to watch a lot of Stargate in my house. But like in an emotional way, like in an emotional sense, he was a great romantic hero. He was super, super hot. Like he showed up and he started talking, and I was like, I'm in love with your brain. Can we get married? Would you be obsessed with me if we got married? It's beautiful.
No, and then you can just tell, like, even though you only ever saw Hawk Girl for like one brief kind of second in Smallville, like you felt that like their relationship was more than more
respect.
Yeah, there was so much more respect. Well, also Smallville was just more respectful to the source material than most of the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
But it was just so great, and I don't care what anyone says. I thought the Smallville Hawkman suit was great. Also, I know that shit got a lot of hate, but also when you're on a CW budget and your actor isn't shredded, the classic Hawkman look ain't gonna work. I don't care who it is. And,
if we're going to make a list of bad Smallville costumes, Hawkman is not near the top, okay? Like, if we're going to make that list, it's a long list.
Okay, can we say fucking... Okay, I love the character, and at the time I didn't mind...
Cyborg.
But, yeah, Cyborg's one of them. But... But Cyborg's look... Okay, you have to understand... Like, I didn't mind it as much because... I understood that they were on a budget and they couldn't make him look like he does in the comics.
It was like A for effort on Cyborg.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like whatever. Okay, but Impulse. Okay. My biggest thing was Impulse. If he's wearing a fucking hoodie and shades, running at night, those are two factors when you're running.
My gosh, you're right. He should have been running into walls and all sorts of things.
And the most hilarious and the funniest thing was that in the last season of Smallville, like there was an episode where like Lois was trying to figure out Clark's new look, and this is when Clark was wearing the red jacket. She sewed on a hoodie to his jacket and gave him sunglasses, and he's like, "I can't believe what you just did to my jacket." And he explains that it's gonna if I'm running around at night and I can't see, and then the hoodie's gonna be flying off, and they're like, "Oh, we'll do something to it, whatever." That was like an in-universe thing that they realized it was.
Went ahead and admitted that their other design was completely stupid.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how Smallville rolls. It was the most beautiful thing that's ever happened on television. It was a great contribution to the history of art.
No, and it's funny because then I read the comic book series that followed it, and then they brought Impulse back, and they gave him an entirely new look that actually made sense, and then just like. Yeah, and again, I know we're really off topic from the DCEU, but whatever.
We're on the DC theme.
We're close enough.
Something. So, also speaking of DC TV, I don't want to spoiler, but can I just say I've been watching The Flash with a sneer on my face for the past 2.5 seasons, and last night they actually got a good one. So if you want to watch a good episode, go watch that one. That was good.
The iris thing. Was it the iris thing? I haven't been watching.
No, that's next week. That's next week, baby.
No.
And she's purple, and she's got purple lightning. I am so here for this.
I'm so pumped.
Iris gets power. No, this one was the one where the nuclear bomb went off, and the speedsters are going as fast as possible in that tiny amount of time to try to figure out how to undo it, which is impossible. But you know what I mean? Like, holy awesomeness. They had me on the edge of my seat. I actually was invested. I was like, I had no idea how they were going to fix it. I was like, holy crap. It was really, really cool. And the acting was just off the charts. And of course, like, they're finally giving Iris awesome stuff to do. Anyway, that's all I'll say.
Okay, so my quick question, since you're caught up then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hit me.
Okay. So this might be spoilery for anyone who's not watching, because I'm not watching. Okay. Have they done anything? Okay. But have they acknowledged what's going on with the one character who everyone's assuming is Barry and Iris' daughter?
No, but she did appear again last night.
She did?
She was fluffy and dippy and completely adorable, and then had a very weird moment of almost malice at the end, and it was like, what the heck?
What?
I know, and now I'm like,
I'm so into it.
No, honestly, like
this is the thing. Like, why don't they lean into the drama? Every time there's more drama, I'm more invested. But instead, they're just like, hey, we know that every single villain that the Flash has is exactly the freaking same. Like all of the big villains. So we're just gonna have a season-long arc with villain like Zoom number 5, who is exactly the same, does the exact same shit, and we have to find a new way to stop him
and be faster.
He's 5% different. And be faster. Run fast. Like
run, Barry, run.
Like all of that shit is so fucking bland. But you introduce one baby from the future who may or may not be here to destroy us. Yes. Oh,
honestly, like, okay, when I watch, because the last time I watched any of these shows was during, I watched the whole crossover, and God was, that pissed me off. But the first thing that when the crossover. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna take this chance to rant for a moment. The fact that they fucking killed off a Jewish character by having a fucking Nazi shoot him and God,
weird.
I was pretty much like, wow. Thanks.
I'm like fucked up.
I'm like, seriously, of all of the ways you could be offensive, you did not think this would be one of them. Like, you, how? Okay. If the actor wants to move on, that's fine. Why do you have to kill off a Jewish character by having a Nazi kill him? Why?
Yeah. Why? And here's the thing. As usual, it's the cop's gonna retire, so, you know, let's make sure to up the angst and emotional manipulation by killing him. You know what? Why is it so bad if he just goes home and retires and actually retires and hangs out with his wife and his daughter, admits that he's not as young as he used to be, you know? Why is that
this is the professor.
Oh, yeah, spoilers.
Oh, yeah,
spoilers.
That was the worst.
Why not? You know, but they always, this is where I start to get angry at shows like this, and this is why I've had a sneer on my face for quite a while, because that's all they do. I could pinpoint the moment they decided they were going to kill Eddie in the Flash, because suddenly he was an angel, he could do no wrong, and they were doing their darndest to twist and get the angst emotional up there, and it's like, you know what, that just feels like manipulation to me, guys, and I'm not investing. You're starting to make me angry. They just have to, and they think it's good writing, but it's old and it's tired. So, you know, it would be the amazing choice would be to have the guy go home and spend the rest of his, of his retired years with his family. I'm sorry, that would be a groundbreaking choice because we don't get that anymore. So,
I mean, the thing is that if you had an overarching plan, this kind of shit would never happen. And that's the entire problem, is that there's no plan on these things.
There's like,
how do we pull more stuff out of our ass this time around? Yes. How do we continue to spin out this thread to keep getting paychecks? And that's the thing that's like, it's just so soulless, and it is formulaic, but it's also just sort of like, why are you wasting your time? Like, are you contributing anything to like television? I mean, like, I know that these people don't take this shit very seriously, but like, this is a contribution. Like I can tell you, Candace Patton takes it really seriously.
She does.
I'm pretty sure that Grant Gustin takes it pretty seriously. I think that there are people involved in these projects that take it very seriously, and I think that a lot of the writing reflects that a lot of people working on the writing team don't, and that's really shitty.
And it's sad. It's very frustrating. It just this is why Zack has ruined me, because even though he's doing films and not TV, when I look at his stuff, I'm like, holy crap! Look at that beautiful wonderfulness. Look at how awesome. Look at how great. And then I look at the other stuff and go, wow. You weren't even trying, were you? It just, I don't know.
And that's how we segue back to the DCEU.
Yes. What was on our topic list? How do we get back?
Sorry. Can I interrupt for a second? You know, Katie, my main problem with this latest Flash episode will be that what he managed to do using his speed, it now looks even more stupid when he loses to non-speedster enemies. Like, if he can
that show has always had a serious problem with, okay, he's the fastest man alive, except
but is he really?
When this and this and this, well, and even, I will say, even in the episode last night, I'm like, you serious? You know, she holds up the thing and goes to push the button, and he can't intercept that before she gets it down? Okay. But the plot says so. The plot says so. And so this show and many other shows that deal with superpowers have always had a bit of an inconsistency because they need the plot to do what it does, so their powers are as good or as bad as they need to be in that particular moment. And that is very plot driven. And I agree with you there. That drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely crazy.
So speaking of Flash, I guess this would be a good time to talk about the Flashpoint movie.
Oh yeah,
what's going on with that?
Do we have more
news?
Is
it a Flash?
Well, the directors have officially signed on. The directors of Game Night have officially signed on. Yeah, it's official.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, well that's news.
Okay, no, okay.
That's not what I want.
I know. Honestly, the happiest I was when Rick Famuyiwa, who directed Dope, was signed on. I was ecstatic because Dope was one of my favorite movies of that year.
That was such a loss, man.
We're never gonna come back completely from Rick, and I think
that's what frustrates me, because I agree. I think that Zack was behind engineering that, going that direction, doing that kind of choice and stuff like that. We could have had such an amazing Flash film from him.
With Cyborg in it.
Like if anyone's seen the movie Dope, which is a great film, it could have been something like that, because we could have had. Because the reason why the actress who was going to play Iris West was going to be Iris West was because Rick brought her on because she was on the Dope film that he made before. And I would have loved to see, because I felt like Rick was going to add a sort of black influence to this Flash movie.
Yes.
Yep.
Like, I felt like this Flash movie was going to take place in, I don't know, either the Bronx, maybe South Central, or just some place where there's a lot of black influence in it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was most excited for, to see the Flash in like a black setting and seeing him dealing with all this stuff of not only black culture, but since he's also like half Jewish and he's also possibly queer in this like universe, mm-hmm. those would have been aspects that would have really built on Flash, not only as a character, but as the film progresses on. And those were elements that I wanted to see. But now,
Candace Patton was talking about the missed opportunity that has been made as far as like the fact that the Wests are black on the series, but their blackness has been really whitewashed, and their blackness really isn't a part of the way that they build those characters.
Yes.
And, the way that the Flash films could correct that.
Whoa, I can see the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way that the Flash films could incorporate that sense of culture into those films would have been powerful.
Yeah,
I think it's just the fear of playing into stereotypes, and that's what I guess the issue was. See, the fear of playing into stereotypes.
Well, I think that's why you can tell that there's white writers.
Yeah,
I mean, look at like Black Lightning.
Because they have to worry about that. They do. They have to worry about that.
Yeah.
They have to worry about that criticism. And one of the ways that they dodge it is by not addressing it at all.
Yeah.
But like
it's a slippery
in contrast with Black Lightning, we have black creatives behind the project, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because sometimes like white writers have to walk that slippery line of is this something I should be writing, or is this something a black writer should be writing? And I think at that point you should be like, well, should you be writing this at all if that's the thought that comes to mind?
This is true. This is true. And Candace has a good point, and that's why, like, an episode ago, Ralph did something particularly disgusting, or, he's, but, like, she looked at him, Iris looked at him and went, you nasty. And people were actually amazed and impressed that she got to say anything that came close to what a black person might say to somebody who's that nasty, because she just never gets that opportunity. And you're right, it is a bit of a misboat, and it's in some ways it's frustrating,
Yeah, but going back to Flashpoint, I guess right now I'm just kind of curious as to whether or not this is going to be a Flash movie or is it going to be Flashpoint.
I don't think it's going to be Flashpoint anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's Flashpoint anymore because based on who they chose to direct it, it feels like they're going more towards the whole Spider-Man Homecoming kind of style of doing things.
It's so ambitious to try and do a Flashpoint movie. Like the Flashpoint movie,
I can't imagine them.
I could see it happening if the guy who made Watchmen was a big part of it. But the fact that the guy who made Watchmen is not going to be involved anymore, now it's like, it seems too big. It seems too unwieldy. It seems like a huge event of its own. And that is something that Spider-Man Homecoming was absolutely not in any way. Like, it was a cute little standalone movie. I enjoyed it, but it's not, on the level of Flashpoint. But a Flash movie could probably, meet that bar.
I would rather have Mark Webb.
I'm just worried that they're going to go straight up comedy all the time. We lost so many layers of Barry Allen already. Like, just the stuff from, like, early snippets and teasers and that kind of thing that we were supposed to get of Barry Allen in Justice League. Instead, almost all of that was wiped away, and we got, Scaredy Cat comic relief boy. And it really frustrates me. If they continue going with that, I'm going to be pissed. Because
every time I watch
Ezra, that's not what I was here for. That is not what I came for. I came for some awesome, layered, in-depth, 360-degree full character type of idea, not just the classic quippy people. That's why I don't watch Marvel anymore. If it's going to Marvel, I'm out, because that's not why I'm here. Anyway, rant over. Sorry.
I mean, every time I watch Ezra lately, I get newly upset because it's like he's capable of so much more, and that character deserves so much better. And I think that
well, that's why, like, if you look at, like, for me, like, the
he's
first thing I ever
Grant
saw
Gustin.
Oh, God, no. I remember the first movie I ever saw Ezra in was Perks of Being a Wallflower, and in there, the character had moments of humor, but he still Ezra was able to pull off a performance of a troubled gay teenager in the 90s when it wasn't nearly as accepted to come out, especially when you're at the time, in the context of the movie, he's dating this jock who's still closeted, and dealing with that whole
situation. From my perspective, he was the most powerful character in that film.
Easily.
He wasn't meant to be, but Ezra took that film from everyone else who was in it.
Yeah, I know.
Ezra's very good. They're not letting him really stretch his wings.
They're not letting him run right either.
I don't mind the running thing. I don't.
I don't know. It just feels like
I will defend the running. Yeah, where somebody brought up the idea that he's not so much running using the Speed Force. It's like he's almost speed skating through it, or something to that effect. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I can go with that. So I'll go with that. But I agree. It's like, okay.
It's an adjustment because we're so used to seeing Grant Gustin just run in place doing the same running.
I think that's it.
But like, can we be real about the fact that Grant looks silly?
He always looks silly.
Yeah, he does look silly.
And also they've used the same recycled shots
because there's no way to do it right. But
yeah.
Okay. Also they've used the same recycled shots of Grant running for 4 years now.
Yeah,
they have.
I'm not even kidding. It's the same recycled shots, just mirrored, or they added tiny little details to make sure they get the suit right. But it's like so many times. It's literally the exact same suit, and it's so bad to the point where like sometimes we'll have him like talking as he's running, but using the same shots, and his mouth isn't even fucking moving. And I'm just like, how? Like, it's really like, is it really that hard to go? hey Grant, do you have like 5 minutes to spare? Okay, we're gonna do you running on a green screen for real quick. Okay, that's all we need. Is it really that difficult? It's all you gotta fucking do. You do it all the time anyway. I don't understand. Like, sorry,
I don't know.
That's a little.
I don't know. I can't decide if it's a cost-saving measure or what.
Okay, but anyways, back to Ezra's Betterberry.
I want that Betterberry. This is why I would take Justice League over Man of Steel 2. And this is why I kind of have a little bit of hope for it, because Zack's not just putting up, stuff about Superman. He's putting up freaking, Ezra and Kiersey.
And he didn't have to. He did not have to.
Talk about how good Ezra actually looked in the glasses.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute.
I was literally just looking at that picture right now, actually. He just looked like... He just fit... I think also people don't... When it comes to Barry Allen, even when Grant was cast, people want the perfect blonde-haired, blue-eyed, straight-laced superhero that they can relate to. All these older white men want that hero to relate to. And
I think you're breaking up for me, because whatever's crunching, I can barely...
I say either that, or I was like, who's opening a bag of something, like...
No, but I was just saying that it's just frustrating because fans have always wanted the blonde-haired, straight-laced, 6 foot whatever Barry Allen.
Yeah.
And when they don't get it, they're always going to criticize. And I remember when Ezra was cast, it was the Grant and Gustin fans that jumped on him, as well as just overall the racist and homophobic fans that were like, "Oh, we don't want a fag as Barry Allen and blah blah blah." But then the moment Ezra started talking about the Speed Force and shit, I'm like, holy shit, this is the smartest person that ever could have cast as Barry Allen. Like, the moment Ezra opened his mouth, I'm like, yep, I'm sold. I don't need... Well, I was already sold, but I'm like, I'll give you my money right now, Ezra. Just give me that Flash.
Just give me the Flash, baby. Yep.
And, again, like, when he wasn't being forced into being the comedic relief, Ezra was able to pull in such a, like a real, just warming character in a film surrounded by heroes, who are just...
Yeah, he had a quiet intensity. He had a really tangible vulnerability. He had all of this intellectual sort of awkwardness, but a very organic awkwardness. And then Joss got on there and he was like, "Oh, well, it means that he doesn't like people or something."
It
and takes a broad generalization of that. Yeah, it's there are levels of awkward. There are levels of nervous and not good with people that you can observe without necessarily making a character into I could list 7 of them from Joss franchises that he basically pulled from. One of them
I'm sure.
Awkward teen? Okay, just throw that in there.
Same guy.
Well, and
that's why I'm always going to be so angry about how they handled him in the movie, especially that stupid line about racial tension. Okay. What?
Oh my god, I'm ready to bring this up every time we talk about every time we talk about Barry. I bring up that racial tension line.
It was a bad
I remember my because
really important that we need to point out. It's really important that we need to point out that there's a black member of the team, and it's very important that someone make it super awkward for him, and that we have some sort of terrible why? No, there's absolutely no reason to do it.
No. And I remember you got a superpowered guy with speed powers, and then you got another one who's got half a cyborg body. But you want to talk about color? Okay, really?
And I remember when I was seeing the movie for the first time, my fiance and I were sitting next to each other, and when that line was said, we both looked at each other like, what the fuck was that? And also,
what the fuck was that whole scene?
It was.
It's just embarrassing. I agree. Part of me wants the Zack cut just because I want to know how exactly this came about and how this happened, and did they talk to anybody beforehand, or did they just go ahead and tell the 2 youngest ones to go dig up the body of their dead hero? I need to know these things because it seemed really weird and disrespectful the way it was done. And I want to blame a lot of it on Joss, but I kind of need to know what the original was supposed to be.
I know. And that's...
So I guess, Oh, no, go on.
No, and I was just thinking, because I remember, by the end of that movie,
like, as much as I love Ezra and what he was able to do, even given Joss's crap, I loved it.
Funny,
Yeah.
My fiance walking out of that movie was like, I fucking hated The Flash. And I'm just like, you... And also, my fiance just revealed to me recently that she hated Batman v Superman and lied to me about it for a year.
Oh my god!
Betrayal.
Are you kidding? Oh my god.
I'm sorry, sweet Celestia.
It's a modern day tragedy right
The
there.
controversy that just came up in your household.
I know.
God.
Honestly, I remember like, when she just casually brought it up, and she's like, and she, the way she said, like, and I'm not trying to like paint my fiance as like a bad person just because she didn't like it. No, whatever. But honestly, like, I felt like, and I never brought this up, but I kind of felt like personally attacked. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can deal with the online faceless criticism, but in my own household, in my relationship.
But if you think about it, I think that's kind of nice that she, like, despite her not liking it, she was still with you to, you know, talk about it and enjoy it. So, I mean,
that's what I was feeling.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, like, I was trying to start the conversation of like, oh, what they didn't like about it, which is like, okay, well, mainly. She's like, oh, I just thought it was boring and too long, and I fell asleep during it a few times. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. And then she's like, well, I really don't like Ben Affleck as a person, and then all I could see was just Ben Affleck, so I couldn't really enjoy it. But she did say like, oh, I really like Man of Steel. It was just really boring to me, and I didn't like Ben Affleck. I'm like, okay, whatever. But like, but the thing is, like, I told her when she was seeing it, I'm like, be prepared. This isn't the Dark Knight trilogy. Be prepared for something different. And I told her, and you can be honest with me. And then
Could she though? Is the question.
I was gonna say,
Really?
like, well, you know what? Like, I love you a lot, and I know you love this a lot.
no, and that's why I didn't really make that big of a deal about it, because also there was she loves the movie Bridesmaids. Like, that's like one of her favorite movies ever. And similarly, I did the exact same thing where like she sat me down to watch it. And I was like, I don't really find this funny at all. Like, I'm not really enjoying this. And she's like, oh, what do you think? And I'm like,
you don't find Melissa McCarthy funny?
No, I just didn't find it funny. I didn't like Melissa McCarthy. I just found it felt like dated to me. And also,
how can you not like Melissa McCarthy in that movie?
Also,
everything else about that movie is questionable. Melissa McCarthy's performance in that movie is untouchable.
Okay, but also, okay, for me, like, very similarly to how like my fiance felt, like, because also Bridesmaids has been something that, like, because for years people have been saying, oh, it's one of the best comedies of the last few years.
Oh yeah,
so, like,
it's way overhyped.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, a lot of the movies I've seen with Melissa McCarthy and I haven't liked her in. So I don't like her in comedies very much. So
yeah, she's terrible in the majority of shit. Like, I want to be clear.
That's gonna get passed.
So I went in already not liking. So if I had seen Bridesmaids at the time, I feel like I would have liked it more. But because I'm seeing it years later, and people have been saying, "Oh, you're gonna love this. It's gonna be the best comedy ever." Blah blah blah.
Oh no.
And then it's not. And then like it's not my fiance's fault. It's no one's fault. That's just it. I mean, it is some people's fault for overhyping it, but it just, for me, it's just like I just didn't like it. And then when she brought up the fact that she hated Batman v Superman, I'm like, well, now I got something I have to be honest about. And then I told, so we both came clean about the movies that we both love, that we actually both hate.
This is good.
And now you're both better
in
people.
your relationship, you know.
No, but the thing is, like, but the thing is, like Amy, she knows how much these movies mean to me. And so like she's gone out of her way to get me all these like different like memorabilia from the movie, or like to do all these things for me and get me like all these like DCEU pops and all this stuff. And
it's because she loves you.
Yeah, and like
wonderful support of
and at the end of the and also she allowed us to have a Superman and Lois Lane wedding cake topper. And
Wow.
like
yeah, she's a keeper. You keep her.
Oh my god, yes.
We'll allow the BBS to slide, but yeah.
You are doing good to marry her. Okay.
No, it's just like I could care less if she liked or hated Batman v Superman, but I just like I like the fact that she's able to put up with me and doing this podcast sometimes, because I know sometimes she's like, how can you talk for 3 hours about these movies? And I'm just like, I don't have an answer. We just keep doing it.
Honey, we all wonder the same thing, and yet we do it every time. So, all right, Jean has to go, right? Jean, do you have to go?
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Sorry if I kept on rambling, but okay, bye. It was nice having you.
Bye.
Bye.
So I guess we could talk about Shazam now.
Okay, yeah. I feel like this conversation is going to be a little shorter.
There's not much material to work with.
Yeah, but also, I mean, like, granted, so there have been a lot of, even today, been a lot of behind the scenes like footage and stuff of Zachary Levi in the suit, and there's been some controversy as to like whether the suit looks good or not, or whether it looks cheap or not.
Yeah.
I want to state my opinion by saying this: like, it looks exactly like how I would want it to be, from what I can see. And that it's a big, red, cheesy-looking suit. It's not Michael Wilkinson design, whatever, that's fine. And I'm not expecting every DCEU movie to look and feel like, oh, these are intricately detailed suits and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's perfectly fine if it's not.
Expecting this film to look like a Zack Snyder film is going to be very, very disappointed. And we need to adjust our expectations right now if that's the case for anybody, because wow, like it's Shazam. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Like, and for me, that's why, like, honestly, if the suit looks cheesy, as long as it looks good in the film, that's all I need. Like, I don't.
Well, and somebody brought up the thing that he's like a kid, and so like this is his idea of what a superpower, a superhero suit looks like, as a kid.
That's
and
what I was gonna bring up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna describe it as like big, only with superheroes, like you have to respect that that's the vision, and that means that the vision is like, it's gonna be silly, it's gonna be really cute, it's gonna be precious, like it's gonna be a lot of things that people don't necessarily want out of these films in general. Like, people are gonna be like, well, why isn't this all about violence and anger, and but it's like, it's not probably gonna be like that, because it's not a good fit for the story.
Yeah, and I think I think my reaction to the suit was that, like, when I first saw it from behind, I was like, why is he wearing drapes as a cape? Sort of. But I think I saw the front image of it, and I kind of was a little bit more hopeful about it. And then I saw it in movement, and I don't know. I guess as of right now, I'm just gonna wait for the official picture to come out before I say anything else. But so far, from what I've seen from those first few videos behind the scenes, I feel like Zachary Levi has definitely captured the essence of Billy Batson. Because if you saw the way he celebrated from saving those people on that bus, that's like cute. Grade A Billy Batson. Like, Billy Batson would do something like that. Like, he would just cheer and be happy that he did some hero work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the suit and I was like, wow, like, that's a lot to take in right away. Holy crap. And I was like, okay, well, like, this is candid, and it's not an official shot, and whatever. And then I saw the second shot, and I was like, oh, well, like, that's what Shazam looks like. I don't know what I was expecting. And then I did see the video, and the video won me over big time. The video, was a little slice of what's to come as far as the character goes, and I think it was precious as hell. Like, I was super into it.
I think it's funny because I feel like this movie was the hardest sell for you, like, initially, right?
I know, and I don't know. There's something about Zachary Levi and his insistence on not taking any of this seriously that really just, like, charms the pants off of me. I'm into it.
Yeah.
And also, like the banter between him and Henry on Instagram and stuff. Like, Henry has to be in this movie. Henry has like I don't think... I
still would like to see Henry Cavill 1,000 miles away from this project, but it's very sweet.
Yeah, and that's
I think
that's a controversial opinion, I'm aware.
Silence afterward, we're all like, what? Okay, I gotta know why.
Don't you want Henry? I don't want him. I don't. I don't feel like he should be a hanger-on to other people's projects. I'm not entirely sure that Henry would fit the tone.
It's like with Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Yes, no, yeah, I don't want him to be the new DCU Iron Man. I think that's a mistake. And I think that the only time that this probably would happen would be either like in the Nightwing movie and in the Shazam movie. But I think that turning him into that guy would be a mistake. And I think that
I agree with that.
If the character is going to be abused in any place.
Let it be his own
aside
movie.
from the Justice League movie, it would probably be a Shazam movie, and I'm nervous about that. And I think that the idea that he can operate independent of that he and Lois can have like a Tony and Pepper dynamic is dangerous and stupid and doesn't make any sense. I'm really bothered by the idea that we could have Superman sort of running through all of these franchises without his own and in the absence of Lois entirely. I think that's dangerous.
Yeah. I think the only reason why I would want Superman to be in this film was if you remember the comics where Superman and Shazam were in the same comic, I don't know which one, but there was this one time where Superman found out that Shazam was actually Billy Batson and a boy, and he got so mad at the wizard who gave him the powers that he literally flew over to his place and was like, "What are you doing? Why would you give this kid such powers? Why would you have to have him go through all this terrible stuff? Like, he should be a boy. He should be happy. He should have someone teach him things." And then the wizard's like, "Well, why not you?" And then we get to the end where Clark reveals that he's Superman and is like kind of taking care of him. So I guess that would be the only reason why I would want Superman in Shazam.
I think that's a really powerful scene, but I think that it deals with a Superman that Henry Cavill's Superman isn't yet, in my opinion. I look at that scene and I say, if that's a Superman who's like a veteran, who has any experience mentoring, who is really comfortable in his skin, and Justice League didn't even get him there. Like, I think it's premature. I think down the road it might be interesting to do that scene, because I think that scene's beautiful. And it's like a tearjerker scene. Like, it rolls over my Tumblr feed probably like once a month or so, and it's awesome. But I don't know if Cavill's Superman at this juncture is a good fit for it, and I think it would be more weird manipulation of the character to try and shove him into that mold at this point in time.
I see all that, but I will say, even now, Cavill's Superman understands the great weight that comes with these kinds of powers.
Absolutely,
and so he would, at the very least, be severely angry to see somebody just handed that who is obviously too young to manage it, and so... But at the same time,
out of his depth as a mentor, out of his depth right now, I don't think that he'd be
as a mentor. I totally see that. I honestly, the only thing I would want to see is just a tiny cameo. And
tiny cameo would be good.
That would be awesome. Just because I know that there's a connect between Shazam and Superman, and that would be cool. But I agree that the last thing I want to see is him become like an Iron Man situation. I could not.
Yeah.
I wasn't all into. I haven't been all into Marvel for years, but I wasn't all into Homecoming anyway. I still haven't seen it. But the minute I heard that Iron Man was going to be a big part of it, I admit I was like, oh, I check out. It just they put him everywhere. I got an Avengers 2.5 instead of a Cap 3. Because I'm just not here for him anymore. And so the minute they plugged him in, I was like, oh, I'm out, and I still haven't seen it, and I don't really have any interest to.
I think also. Oh, go for it.
Oh, thanks. This is Rebecca, by the way. I'm back now.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm gonna be gone in 15 minutes or so, though. So don't get excited.
Okay, that's fine. Good talk.
It's a 24-hour podcast. You just come and go as you choose.
Yeah. So in regards to what Danielle's concerned about, Superman becoming like the Iron Man of the DCEU, I don't think that would happen because the character is not popular enough. like, I don't think people like Superman enough. Even people who say they like Superman, I don't think they really like Superman enough to warrant him being everywhere. I think Wonder Woman maybe there's a danger of her becoming like that because everybody seems to love her and everybody wants to see her.
Interesting.
Yeah, it depends on who they turn him into, though, too, because that Justice League version of him is very popular.
Yeah.
Is he? Because the response to
Not
him,
really.
it was kind of lukewarm. The response to him was
for Batman.
Really,
well, I think they missed
certain people who wanted him to be comic, to be like their idea of
nostalgia, but when it happened, they didn't get excited about it. I mean,
I don't know that.
I think
they definitely got smug about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were excited about it when they first saw it in theaters. But then I noticed that when those deleted scenes of Zack Snyder's Superman came out, suddenly people were looking at the Justice League theater version of Superman and were like, you know what? This Superman actually isn't that good as I thought it was initially. And these deleted scenes are actually a better version.
I don't know. I think a lot of that has to do with Gremlin Mouth. I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that the CGI was so bad in all of his reshoot scenes. And I don't know. I don't think we've got a pure sort of taking the temperature of the public. But I agree that, like, I don't think that Superman is ever going to be as popular as Tony, because Tony represents a lot of status quo things that Clark is just never going to stand for, no matter how hard we try.
And I think when it comes to
Clark,
I think because with Superman, like, people. Like, I don't think Superman as a character is what some people like. I think people just like Superman because he is, like, the first superhero, and people know that emblem.
And they feel like they have to. They feel like they should like Superman. Which I think is what I encounter more than anything is people who are like, well, of course I like Superman. It's like, why? Why of course? Why should that be natural? Like, obviously, like, you haven't thought about the character for very long if you just have to go, well, obviously, everyone likes Superman. No, like, you don't have to like Superman. And I think that you should think critically about, whether you do or not, whether you actually like the character as written, or if you just, like, feel like the only way to get nerd cred is to say, like, of course I like Superman. Like, no, like, I mean, like, I'm less and less a Batman fan every year, so.
Yeah, I noticed that. I used to be a Batman fan, now I'm all Superman.
I would like to be honest about Shazam's costume, because when I first saw it, I got worried, because
oh no, I was too.
It looks too much like classic straight from the comic books. I got used to the fact that in DCEU, characters have this modern look to their designs. Everyone, including the Suicide Squad even. And I was expecting that Shazam would look also a modern version of himself with something, a much more Greek-inspired costume. Like, it would tell that he has a power of Greek god. And now I'm worried that Warner Brothers is going to take DCEU into direction where everything will resemble classic comic books, and maybe when they start Man of Steel 2, they will come up with some ridiculous plot twist that Martha was so happy with Clark coming back from the dead that she made him a costume with red trunks to wear.
Oh, God.
Don't say that out loud. You'll make it.
Don't.
I'm just gonna turn off my mic and cry for a minute, so nobody don't mind me.
I didn't think I could feel physically ill over an idea, but here I am.
Especially now, because they are bringing back red trunks in comic books with Action Comics 2000. And
it's not that I hate the red trunks. I just hate what they represent now. I hate like what they've become.
Yeah.
Like, I've never liked it to begin with.
Better without them.
He does.
Like in comics and in the movies, like it's like a miracle or something. Like you can't even imagine it until it happens, and then you're like, wait, that's nice.
Yeah. Okay, but here's my argument.
The red trunks for me, I have to say. I'm never looking at his package when he doesn't have them on. on. When he has them on, my eye is drawn, and that is just art, okay? That is just the way that art works, and it doesn't have anything to do, like, I'm sure,
you're naturally,
looking
it catches the eye more.
It's a
looking at
big
Superman's
red target.
package
Yeah, it's a red color.
is obviously a pastime of mine, but when it's the first thing you look at, it's a problem. When it's the first thing you look at, that's just art drawing your eye to the color red, and it's a problem, and it's the most obvious problem to solve by just not making any area around Superman's dick red, and it seems very obvious to me.
Okay, can I say this? Okay, I just want to say this is kind of related. Okay, so back when Superman Returns was coming out, this is a true story, and this is kind of inappropriate, so if you're younger and don't want to hear dirty stuff, you might not want to hear this. So Brandon Routh, apparently, his area was so well endowed, let's say, that they literally had to CGI it down so it wasn't obvious.
Him and Tom Welling, apparently. Like, if we're gonna talk about super schlongs, we have the stats.
And that was, and honestly, that's why I think like the era of Red Trunks is over when Superman Returns came out. Like,
yeah,
for real. Just
Zack
like
Snyder
don't worry
that.
about it. It's just
honestly, honestly, even as a kid. Okay, also, here's the thing. People want to defend the red trunks on Superman. Batman had the same fucking black trunks that made no sense for decades. Up until it was literally up until like right before the New 52 he had them. Why aren't fans doing the same thing for him? Why do the trunks matter for Superman and not Batman? Why can Batman change and not Superman?
Because trunks symbolize hope and optimism.
Because Superman's got a big schlong and they want people to know it.
I mean,
it's the only thing that he has over Batman.
Being a symbol of America, because they just gotta,
I mean, if you got, you got Dick Grayson with the butt and Superman with the dick, and that's fine. But there's no reason we need to look at it first. You can look at it third. The first thing you should look at Superman is probably his face.
Or even the S. Or even the S.
I don't. Dick's in a different category. Dick seems very comfortable with his level of objectification. But I also don't look at. I don't always look at Dick's butt first. Dick's butt sometimes.
It's kind of. But it's noticeable. Sort of.
Good. I mean, if his back is turned.
Where's this conversation going?
Yeah, probably it's going butt first.
Yeah,
this is my bread and butter, you guys. Like, I can talk about this for 3 hours. It's bad.
How did we get here?
The trunks.
Oh yeah, RTM. Thank you so much, RTM, for bringing up the dick and butt conversation.
Yeah. Dick and butt.
No. And for those who not dick in butt, but dick and butt. Make that very clear.
Yes, dicks and butts is a separate issue. Two different issues.
Oh boy.
I just want to say that Shazam's costume looks good, but it makes me worried about what awaits other characters regarding their designs.
Yes, I think it represents a really drastic tone change, which could be scary, or it could be just an effective adapting a Shazam film.
Yeah, like
I know it's hard to know if it's Shazam only or if this is the wave of the future. So we'll have.
Yeah, because I heard with in the test screening, which actually went positive, by the way, which I'm kind of happy about. But I heard that for the test screening, they had Aquaman go back to his original colors, which was the sort of gold, the gold chest piece, green pants, and all that.
So I'm worried though because James Wan isn't that kind of person who would just kind of.
But also, there are some people who came out of the test screening saying that he apparently dons the classic costume, or an adaptation of it in the movie. So I don't know.
And I think someone said they used the New 52 picture as a sort of reference to what it could look like.
Well, I mean, integrating that armor into what he's currently wearing wouldn't be terribly hard. As far as like the colors go, especially, I'm hoping they're a bit more muted because it seems crazy to
orange.
Put those bright colors in that kind of palette.
Honestly, I think they can make it work. If they can make Mira work, and I think because I think Mira's design is great in both Justice League and in
the
Aquaman.
bright green, she looks fabulous.
Oh god, Mira's she's something else. That's why again, like when you talked about like feeling like was it like 80% gayer after seeing her in Justice League, like when she showed up, I'm just like, holy shit! Can I just get like a Mira movie, please? Like I'll just here's my money now. Like
She was in like 20 seconds of that film. It was just like boom, and she just hits you for like a minute, and I was thinking about her for like 3 scenes afterward.
Me too.
I was like, can we go back to the ocean and see how Mara's doing? Because I would really just like to hang out with her for another hour.
We were supposed to. We were supposed to see her again, but fucking they cut her. Well, whatever.
Yep.
Speaking of the ocean, I would like to see, what Atlantis would look like. And not just Atlantis, but also the trenches. Because I heard the trenches were like some of the most scariest places in this film.
So, James Wan is gonna go there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why honestly, that's why I'm not really worried about Aquaman really, because also just or at least like in a movie making sense, it's just like James can make like an atmosphere. The way he directs scenes and like creates the atmosphere of a given scene, I think, especially in an environment such as the ocean, where like the ocean is honestly, the ocean is one of the most terrifying places on the earth. Like it seriously is, and there's so much of it we still don't know about, and that's crazy. And James Wan of all people, who directed Saw, The Conjuring, Insidious, whose ballpark is horror, and he's working in the ballpark of one of the scariest places on earth. I think
I want him to make me shit myself when I see those trenches.
Well, Guillermo del Toro was just talking about how hard it is to shoot scenes underwater and to shoot completely underwater characters. And every single I've literally been reading everything about the filming techniques for Shape of Water because of like this intrigue when it comes to actually practically shooting these scenes underwater and how they might actually make that work and what that hypothetically looks like. Is just like a bizarre thought to me. Like I don't even know how you accomplish it or how that even works. And I think that's the most exciting thing for me, like looking at it like from a technical perspective, like how much creativity is necessary for this film to go forward. I think that's half the reason why they never tried to kick him off this film, because they were like, well, how are we going to do it? Like, I've got, they have no ideas.
Yeah.
Is there anything
I'm
new?
hopeful about the positive test screenings, but at the same time, I'm still a little nervous about that. Because we've been down this line before where the test screenings were good, and then the actual movie comes out and it just gets a whole lot of hate.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is
the test screening, or let me just say the early reviews of Justice League were like, "Oh, it's amazing," and we all went, "Uh-oh," because we don't tend to always fall in line with what the critics like. So, I agree. I just don't know. I'm gonna have to wait and just walk in and see it.
Well, I think also the with some of these movies, to have a person who has made critically well received movies like James Wan has, like I think also the problem with Justice League is that especially when it comes to obviously when the reviews came out, critics still hated it. I think a lot of that was because of the Zack Snyder name. I think Aquaman is going to be fared a little better because it's James Wan and not Zack Snyder, which it's a shitty situation, and I feel bad for Zack because just his name alone, people are like, well, it's Zack, so it's automatically shitty, even though I may have liked it, which is ridiculous. But I think Aquaman is going to be more well received than Justice League, just because of the fact that it's James Wan, and James Wan has made good movies, and critics have liked his movies, and I think that I'm not saying I'm obviously not saying whether the movie's gonna be good or bad. I have no idea, obviously, But
you're just saying there's less bias there.
Yes, that's my point. Is that there's a lot less bias because critics, when it comes to certain directors, critics just they're like, oh well, he's made good movies, so yeah, of course I like his movies. Or whereas like with Zack Snyder, I feel like no matter what Zack Snyder makes next, he's never gonna be like an Oscar-nominated director, which sucks because I think he deserves it. But I think critics, no matter what it is, whether it's The Last Photograph or Justice League or whatever, critics are not gonna like his movies. They just won't. And it's only because of his name and who he is.
Yep.
So
speaking of Aquaman, and I know this has nothing to do with the DCEU. This is just a small thing. I'm sorry, but did you know about the Teen Titans Go movie?
Oh God.
I heard it. I didn't see the trailer. I don't pay attention to Teen Titans Go. I don't hate it.
That they made at the end of one of the jokes they made at the end of it was because if Aquaman can have a movie, why not them?
But no,
They're a mess.
Teen Titans Go, like how did
one time
they need to go back to TV in the trash land where they belong, and they can eat my ass.
How? Seriously,
I hate that series more than anything in the world. I am not gonna be chill about it.
What? You don't love Teen Titans Go? Why not?
I don't get offended by that show, even though I was raised on the original Teen Titans.
Because that was actually good television,
and I absolutely love that show. But like, Teen Titans Go doesn't offend me because all it is crack fan fiction. That's all it is. And I'm not going to get worked up. I can choose to read crack fan fiction if I want. I can choose to watch Teen Titans Go if I want. Personally, I choose not to. But, you know, whatever.
They just need to stay in their lane. Like, here's the thing. Like, I collect the Rock Candy Funko Pops. And they made a whole set of freaking Rock Candy Funko Pops. And I literally didn't even know they were Teen Titans Go until after they were released, and I was so excited because I thought I was going to have Starfire and Raven on my freaking shelf.
Yeah, nope.
And then they've got Teen Titans Go all over them, and it's the Teen Titans Go designs, and it's like, I can't have anything I like with these characters at all until this series dies. And I'm ready for the series to just die. I'm ready for it to go down in flames, and if I have to light the fire, I will do it.
And the sad thing, and the sad thing is like that is what they canceled Young Justice for.
Yes.
Well, yeah, they did. I was
oh my god.
Pissed off.
They canceled Young Justice for Teen Titans Go.
Well, no. So okay. So Young Justice. Okay, here's the situation. Young Justice was canceled because they weren't selling toys because young females were gravitating more towards the show than like 8-year-old boys who were buying the toys. So
you know that I give my students a lecture on this exact topic every single semester, whether it's relevant to the course or not. I do. It's bad.
But why can't they market the toys to the girls then?
I guess because they figure that girls don't like superheroes apparently. Which is why, like, okay, honestly, okay, so here's the thing. I was at the Young Justice panel at Comic-Con with the showrunners there. You can tell, like, and they were trying to obviously not name drop, like, Netflix or Cartoon Network or anything. You can tell they're being petty as fuck. Like, you can tell, like, we had something good and Cartoon Network fucked us over. So the fact that they're bringing the show back like this, I think is amazing. First of all, it's amazing because Young Justice is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah.
Well, what exactly was the explanation, though, for Teen Titans? Because I tried to look into this, and there doesn't seem to be much of a way of explanation. No, Teen Titans, because it got canceled. And like, when you look at the last episode, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't.
I read somebody who worked at Cartoon Network, like a first-hand account from someone who worked at Cartoon Network, anonymously, of course. So this is a really kind of maybe a little sketchy, but basically that the same thing happened was that not enough boys were watching. They were getting great numbers, and everything was fine. But they weren't getting numbers from male audience members, and they couldn't get the boy group. And what this is actually, and this is the content of my lecture, which is what we call market segmentation, which is that before a product even comes out, the people who are assigned to that marketing team, they decide what the target audience is for that market, and the idea is they want full market saturation. They want every single little boy between the ages of X and Y to watch Teen Titans. That and that's their goal. If something happens in the market that is outside their goal, they are incapable of processing that in a way that helps them profit. They just look at that market segmentation question and they just say, we aren't getting enough boys. We don't have enough boys to saturate that market. And that's the reason. The reason that they segment the market is so that they can cover the entirety of that market. They're theoretically every little boy in the country that they've chosen to air Teen Titans in should be watching Teen Titans. That's their goal. And if they can't get anywhere near that goal, then the entire thing is junk to them, which is crazy. And that's why they market toys just to the boys. That's why they market that merchandise just to the boys. And the way that merchandise and those toys sell measures for them how successful their marketing has been. And it's bullshit because
Teen Titans Go?
I mean, Teen Titans Go isn't even as it looks to me. Teen Titans Go isn't even leveled at children. Like, I don't even think it's for kids necessarily. I think it's for bitter, old fanboys.
But nobody liked. I mean,
that's like no one likes it. How?
Yeah, who are the people who are buying that stuff, and how soon?
I feel like it is marketed
for like
really. I feel like it is marketed for like really, like young children.
Impressionable.
It's weird because this show had. Hold on, how many seasons? It looks like there were 5 seasons. There were 5 seasons, and I'm like, how do you get 5 seasons, 13 episodes a season, plus a film, and you don't like think that this is something that you need to keep going? Like 5 seasons? Like, I mean, I don't know. The impression that I was under when I was a kid, I didn't go to public school, so I don't know what the main like vibe among the kids was about the show. But everyone that I knew, like including the boys, thought that this show was like the most lit thing ever, and we loved it. So I don't know.
What show? Oh, the first Teen Titans
launched those franchises. Teen Titans is the reason that people know who Starfire is today. And I'm telling you that. And, like, that's the reason that the comic sells today. That's the reason that Starfire has her own comic. It's the entire reason. Because of Teen Titans. Teen Titans built that house. And I feel like Cartoon Network was nothing but disrespectful to that.
Yeah, I feel like Teen Titans also brought in this sort of anime aspect to Western television that hasn't been done before. And it did it so well in really feeling like, oh, this is our anime. And this, along with Avatar: The Last Airbender, it feel like this was the wave of anime being implemented into Western cartoons. And yeah, Teen Titans is a very influential show in that as well.
Yeah.
And
also that shows a reason because that I know, like that I'm familiar with any of those characters, and like Cyborg and Beast Boy and Starfire and Raven, like that's how I know about them.
Yeah, we also love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's so good. That's so good for the health of the comics. That's so good for the health of the comic industry. It's good for a lot of things that I think, frankly, Cartoon Network isn't affected by, and really couldn't give a crap about. And I think that's a big part of the problem is that, like, the networks that, I mean, that's the thing is these networks and these companies that handle these products don't see them as potential marketing opportunities for a different art form. They see them as money-making opportunities in themselves, and don't think about the larger impact. I mean, the larger impact doesn't impact them, which is why Marvel Studios was such a cool freaking idea until we decided that everything needs to be owned by some sort of corporation, and Disney bought them.
What I don't understand is with the whole idea of them, like, seeing this show as, like, a money-making opportunity, is that once you hit children with something that they really can latch onto, like that is money right there, because the kids will they will be obsessed with your thing. They will be obsessed, and then when they get older, they'll be nostalgic and they'll buy all the merch and they'll do this and they'll do that. You know, so it's like if you have something that really like hits the children emotionally, like you're gonna have that for a long time.
Well, they have the merchandising rights far into the future, so there's absolutely no reason they couldn't be cashing in on that today. They could still release all sorts of Teen Titans figures and still make big money, but they have no idea that that's the case for whatever reason.
The same thing with like Young Justice too. Like those are both programs that they're just the people behind the shows, not the marketing people, but the people like the creatives behind the show, like they get the characters and they're telling mature stories. Yes, they're lighthearted, but they can tell these even like meaningful stories that can reach like people all around the world at different ages, at different points in their life, or different types of people. But Teen Titans Go, it's aimed at people who have never seen superheroes before, who have never heard it or don't know what humor is. So they're like, like Teen Titans Go is like. I remember when the show first came on. I asked my little brother. He was like 8 at the time, and at that point he knew I was pissed about Young Justice being canceled for that. And he's like, "Yeah, the show's really, really bad." And this is an 8-year-old saying how bad the show is, and that's I assume that's the core audience they're trying to get. And I'm just like, okay, if an 8-year-old is saying this, how can the executives at Cartoon Network still think that this is a good idea when literally millions of people have hated the show, and millions of people hate the idea of this, and when millions of people went out and supported Young Justice trying to come back, and you keep like, I don't get it. Like if you like,
Hey, speaking of which, would you compare? Because there's this other DC show that was on Cartoon Network, Justice League Action. Like, if you were to compare that to Teen Titans Go, like, you know, which would you rather have?
I'd rather have Justice League Action because at least it's short, contained episodes, but it's not treating you like you're stupid. That's the main difference. Is that like the audience, like it's a lighthearted, it's a kid show. Like you know it's a kid show, but and it's trying to be. But the thing is, like these characters don't feel like caricatures. They don't feel like these characters, these people who can never be realistic. It's these more lighthearted versions of the characters. It's meant for kids. Where Teen Titans Go, I personally find it very offensive, and I can't see the point in it being a thing. Justice League Action isn't necessarily for me, but I know like there are people and kids who watch it who love it, and that's fine. But with Teen Titans Go, I don't know anyone who likes the show. So
yeah.
I feel like we got off topic, and that was my fault.
Okay, we've gone off topic like 7 times already in this episode, so it's
you're not the only one out. You're good.
Also, I mean,
so I think we were talking about Aquaman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because the Aquaman comment or the Teen Titans Go thing. I'm looking forward to Aquaman. Looking forward to Shazam. I'm just at this point, I just don't know the future beyond those movies and maybe Wonder Woman 2. I know they want to keep talking about doing like Suicide Squad 2 and Gotham City Sirens. I don't know if those movies are ever gonna happen. Like, and especially, and then like the Nightwing movie, Chris McKay keeps saying it's gonna happen. I don't know if that's gonna happen either. And I don't know if I necessarily want a standalone Nightwing movie yet. You know, like the fact that there's been no acknowledgement of the fact that he even exists in the universe yet, which is kind of frustrating for me. And it's just like I
think there's one acknowledgement in like the Justice League trailer where Jim Gordon was like, "It's good to see you playing well with others again." But in the theater version, get out for it. It's good to see you playing well with others.
Isn't that a bitch?
Yeah. Isn't that whole movie a bitch? I mean, really. At the end of the day.
I cannot. Everything that made me happy about those trailers was scrubbed. It's amazing. It's uncanny.
Everything that Daniel was talking about that Warner Brothers can't allow their actors to be silent for more than a few seconds. I keep reminding myself about the cornfield scene, and it's so painful what we saw in the Heroes trailer and what we've got. And not only it was ugly reshooted, as a proof you can see Jenny's avatar, but the entire conversation when, especially Lois, how she treated the the alien, the new alien invasion. She and Clark, they both experienced Man of Steel events. They knew how horrible and destructive these kind of events are. But she's like, Batman's need you, something about end of the world and stuff. And once you come back, I'm expecting an exclusive. And Clark is like, yes, ma'am. And oh my god,
that's
horrible. And
awful.
Yes, ma'am. And then his jaw unhinges, and then he swallows her head whole. It was so frightening.
If you remember Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, Clark and Lois have so many moments where they're just looking into each other's eyes in silence, and these kind of moments just tell so much more than this entire reshooted cornfield scene. And it kind of reminded me, I hope you all watched Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, because there is one very emotional moment when after Anakin becomes Darth Vader, he and Batman, they're like in the distance, and they both look kind of like at each other, but from very far away in silence.
Yeah, I love those moments.
It's so beautiful and emotional, and I want these kind of moments in superhero movies more, but apparently I want an exclusive, and yes, ma'am is better for some reason. Like, wow. Just wow.
Okay, well, one thing I want to say, like, honestly, I wouldn't have been as offended about that scene if they didn't show it in the last fucking trailer. Like, if they had showed it in the Comic-Con footage, or at that point it might not have been shot, but they had showed it in, like, the first official trailer, and then we didn't get it, okay, fine, because then it's like, okay, well, they shot it a long time ago, and they didn't realize it was going to be in the movie. Literally, like, a month and a half before the movie fucking came out, they showed this scene, and then, like, why? Why? And
they did. No,
I would have cried blood no matter what, honestly.
No, I know, me too, but I'm just saying, like,
what the timing was.
Lost their mind, when that came out. It was so awesome.
And I remember, like, I'll never forget, because, like, the reactions, if you ever want to see my actual reaction to it, it's up on my channel. But, but that trailer, the moment Clark's there and the theme's playing, I literally tear up. Like, that was all Zack Snyder. Like, that was my Clark Kent, my Lois Lane. That was everything I would have wanted, and no one. Okay, very few filmmakers can make me cry. Like Zack Snyder is one of those few people. And the fact that I was tearing up in front of my fiance and in front of my younger brother, and I didn't care. And I was watching that trailer.
And what is interesting is that after this trailer came out, Zack posted a storyboard of this exact scene.
Oh yeah, to prove that he wrote that.
I think he also saw the trailer, and maybe he thought, oh, it seems they're like keeping my movie the way I intended it to. And wow, just
Never mind. I agree, though. That timing was bad. I swear, everything WB does lately just seems to be like, we'll give them this, and then they'll be happy. And then no one's happy, and it's like, you guys, are you really that far off the mark that you don't understand exactly what's going on here? They don't seem to get it at all. And I agree, Artyom, like, even in Batman v Superman, after Batman leaves to go save Martha, and then, like, Superman steps away, and he's still holding Lois's hand, and they're both looking at each other, and they have a whole freaking conversation right there with no words, and then he leaves, and we're all like, that's so beautiful, and yet we just have to have words all the time now. It's so frustrating.
And it just shows the difference. It once again just shows the difference in like directing. Mm-hmm. I feel very few people who make comic book movies can be able to deliver that sort of emotion out of just, keeping eye contact. Like, it's just, I don't know, I'd say feelings are more stronger than words. And I feel like that's something a lot of movie directors from comic book movies don't seem to really grasp.
Yep.
And that's just kind of disappointing.
Yep. It's kind of becoming a lost art, and it's
I think that's
sad.
a really interesting point, though, because we're talking about adapting a visual medium to a visual medium, and I think that a lot of filmmakers are just not up to the challenge when it comes to comic books, because people who are super into comic books are much more visually oriented, and they don't need that kind of dialogue and that explication. They just need, the visuals that communicate stuff. There are plenty of examples in the medium of extreme minimalism when it comes to actual words in a comic book. And those are, amazing stories that can be told entirely without, any intrusion of like, this is happening now because of this. And filmmaking has become so explanatory. With no respect for that, for the fact that it's a visual medium, for the fact that you can get a lot across. And I hope that we're swinging back toward it. I definitely think I see that in the few of if I'm looking at recent Oscar frontrunners, I think there are a couple examples out there of filmmakers who are pushing back toward visual storytelling.
That would be wonderful.
Certainly, Get Out was a great example of that.
Get Out.
Get Out was really
really visual storytelling, and I hope that we're moving back toward that as we, diversify in all ways our filmmakers.
Yeah. So here's another thing that I actually wanted to bring up, and I guess this was during Black Panther. So I noticed that a lot of people, for some reason, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was about the comparison between the female warriors of Wakanda and the female Amazon warriors, and how there were some people who were on Twitter who was like, these female Wakanda warriors gave me more pride and hope of being a woman more than Wonder Woman did with their Amazon warriors. And they were talking about how, it's because the Wakanda female warriors were featured more in the film than what the Amazons were. And, there's big differences between those two, because with Black Panther, it was all taking place in Wakanda. So, of course, the wars would be there. But in Wonder Woman, it was about her branching out of Themyscira and into the real world. So and better yet, why compare them? It's just great that we have these strong female warriors who have a lot of depth to their character, and they aren't just thrown to the side.
I'm in a weird position on this one, because I think that while I think that it's silly to say, we don't need Wonder Woman anymore, we've got Black Panther, is very, very, very foolish and doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I think there are a number of things that Wonder Woman and Patty could learn from the execution of Black Panther. I think there are a lot of things about Black Panther that in many ways had a much more solid feminist praxis than Wonder Woman did. And I think that that is worth pointing out. I think that, all this terrible, diversity measuring against, Marvel versus DC in terms of, head counting our people of color and, this film is feminist, this film isn't feminist. All of that stuff is super toxic and has nothing to do with actual justice. But I do hope, honestly, that Patty was watching Black Panther and taking notes, because I think that the application of feminism in that movie was much more tangible, which is a little bit disappointing to me. It's a little bit disappointing to look at a film that is focused on a male character, that is, organized around, it was essentially a patriarchal structure, have a better feminist application than the movie about, the feminist superhero does. Yeah. I think that, there's room for evolution, and I hope that Wonder Woman 2 takes a lot of that into account. Black Panther.
Sorry, are you guys talking about Black Panther and Wonder Woman?
Hello.
Yes. So we were just talking about what Danielle was talking about, just the effect of Black Panther, and just I haven't seen the movie, so I can't say it for myself, but basically like just making the point that Black Panther was more successful.
Like the last bit of your sentence, Danielle. But
I was just saying that.
Yeah.
I think that you go for it.
I think what you were talking about was how Black Panther seemed more feminist than Wonder Woman was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got that as well. Like, it wasn't kind of shoved down my face, if that makes sense, because all of them are just powerful in the way that they were naturally. Like, it wasn't made to seem, oh, look at me, I couldn't do anything. I don't know. Like, I enjoyed Wonder Woman, don't get me wrong. She's not my absolute favourite, and I've always said that, but it was a great movie. My sister was empowered by her, so I understand that she did have some social impact, and it is important, and it's a great step forward in terms of having more females in the lead roles. But when I was in Black Panther, good lord, and guys, this should be like an anniversary, because I went to watch a Marvel movie in the cinemas. That has never ever happened in my entire life, but Black Panther was totally worth it. I loved it. It was so refreshing to see the entire cast and having the token white guy, which is really, really weird, because you've never seen that ever. I was like, oh, there's a token white guy. This is a first time in forever. But yeah, I agree with you, because I felt so empowered by the general of the Royal Guard. What's her? I don't know her name. She's bald, and she went against her boyfriend at the end of. Shit. Sorry. Some of you haven't seen it, right?
No, she didn't do anything. She absolutely. There was nothing happening there. Don't. Yeah. It's.
But yeah, I loved her. But the thing is, feminism wasn't. It's not just like one strong personality.
Yes, we had one strong female character versus everyone gets to be equally strong in diverse ways, in very different ways, and I loved that about it. I thought that was beautiful, that we had this group of women who all got to celebrate their strengths in very diverse ways. As opposed to, we had one type of woman in Wonder Woman, and that was the woman who, is effective at punching, which is definitely a valid kind of woman to have in superhero films. But, in that film we had Okoye, we had Nakia, we had Shuri, we had all these people we had all these different kinds of women who had different motives, different character traits, different ways of being strong, and I think that was really powerful, particularly in the case of Shuri and Nakia, because they were presenting a kind of strength that we don't usually celebrate as inherently feminist, but that both of them were extremely amazing role models and extremely really, really strong female characters, even if they weren't kicking everyone that they saw in the face.
I agree, because when I saw what's Black Panther's sister, Shuri, right?
Yes.
I'm crap with names, as you guys already know.
Was Green Goblin in this one?
When I saw her being that awesome scientist, I was like, oh my god, that's me. I do this as for a job. This is me. I enjoyed seeing her thrive and be so smart, and have everyone around her, her brother, all the males, just be amazed by what she's doing, and she has her own space to do it, and it's not, I don't know.
And she gets challenged. She gets challenged in the movie, but she's also the recipient of immediate respect from a lot of her peers. People definitely denigrate her as a little girl, but the majority of the people in that situation, the majority of the people in her sphere, are very respectful of her intelligence, of her power, of her ability, the fact that she is capable in this universe is really empowering. I thought it was really, really great. And just in terms of like keeping things really intersectional and really noticing like the places where feminism touches and bumps up against racial issues and interpersonal issues, and the way that we interact with each other romantically, and the way that the only criticism that I have, that both movies have in common is they both went out of their way to erase queer storylines. That's not something that's changing anytime soon. But, I think that there's a lot of things about the praxis, a lot of things about the way that Coogler applied feminism in his approach that I hope that Patty picks up on for Wonder Woman 2. And maybe she'll have more room, but I haven't seen anything that revolutionary from her yet.
Mm-hmm. By the way, since we started talking about Wonder Woman, there were news about the Cheetah casting choice.
Oh yeah, Kristen Wiig, yeah.
Oh yeah, we could talk about that.
I want to get. What do you guys think? Because I tend to go first. What do you guys think? I'm really curious to see what your guys' thoughts on Kristen Wiig are.
Silence. Oh, that's nice. Tumbleweed just blew through here.
I love Kristen. I do. I think she's a really she's a really surprising choice, which I like. She's also a great dramatic actress that I think nobody gives her credit for. I just watched The Martian the other night, and she was fantastic in it. She's had the most pathos of anybody in that room all the time. Yep. Every single time I was looking at her face, I was like, oh my God, so much is happening. So I think that she, is capable of a really strong performance. I don't know. I have some really specific ideas of I have two really specific ideas of how I'd like them to use Cheetah in this context. But I'm trying not to have really specific ideas anymore because it ruins the film for me.
It does, yeah. It takes something away when they don't do your specific ideas. So.
And since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on the Martian real quick?
Can I just go back to... Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Fat Man, go ahead.
Purely because, I don't know whether you guys have me on Twitter, but it was really weird. I thought it was weird because after 2-3 weeks, a movie kind of dies down, the queues aren't as long, and it kind of drops. But when I went to watch it last weekend, the queues were super long, and the cinema was packed. But when I was in the queue to buy the ticket for me and my sister, there was a black lady in front of us, and she was like, "Oh my God, the queues are so long." I was like, "Yeah, I thought I waited it out so I don't have to be in a packed theater and I have some time." So I just don't really like to be in a packed theater as much as I can possibly not be in a packed theater. And then she was like, "Oh, this is my second time. The movie is so good." And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard it's really good. And I'm so happy to see an all-black cast, and I'm really here to see them. I'm usually not there for a DC movie." And then she had her natural hair that day, and she said, "Oh, I'm wearing my natural hair today because when I saw it the first time and she threw that wig off, I felt so great, and I should." And she was like, "I feel like I should now have my natural hair more because why should I have a wig on?" And honest to God, I looked at my sister and I smiled, and my sister was like, because it was her second time. She had already seen it, and then she's like, "Yeah, it's true, it happens." And to think that a movie has affected people on so many levels, even to the point that it's come to beauty, where you can literally sit there, watch the movie, and appreciate your own natural being because of how media has treated people of color in general. These features are not very desirable, and she was so happy that she had her natural hair on that day. She came in the second time to watch it, and she was just, I don't even understand. It nearly made me tear up. But then I was like, no, I can't get emotional before the movie because I'm here to see it. But she was so happy. And I'm sorry I've deviated the conversation, but I just thought that I'd share that out to the world because I don't know if anyone's seen it on my Twitter, but oh God, it was just this little moment And till this day, I remember how amazing she felt and how amazing I felt for her. Mm-hmm. And it's just about hair. Like, imagine the impact that this movie has had with kids and people of color in general, male and female. Because yes, the lead is male, but goddamn, I would left that movie like, mate, the females carried this movie, whether you like it or not. But it didn't take away anything from Black Panther as a character. So it didn't feel like he was. It was just. I think it's worthy of an Oscar. Even I'm giving a Marvel movie like an Oscar based on the impact it's had on society and people, and how I felt with it, and the interaction that I had with it. Oh God, I'm studying Black Panther so much.
And I think we were talking about the right people doing things, and I love that they gave Ryan Coogler the movie and said, do it, and he said, okay, and I think I remember I saw an interview where Lupita talked about that. Like, no one in the film doesn't have some kind of natural hair. They're all wearing their hair, it's not straightened or flattened or trying to look like anything else. And I think that's wonderful and beautiful, and that's the way it should be. And so that's really exciting, Fatma. What a wonderful story.
Sorry. Yeah. Go on. Carry on, Nick.
No, you're good.
No, because what you said was really great. I still need to see the movie. It's just hard for me to find time because I just finished moving into my new apartment and. Okay, this is really off topic. Because I just moved into a one-bedroom apartment from a studio apartment, and oh my god, the difference in space is amazing. Seriously, I feel like.
You love having a door? Having a door is so important.
Having an actual living room is nice, because before we would literally just hang out on our bed, and that's where I would do the podcast and stuff from. Now I'm chilling in our living room, and my fiance's cousin who lives here in San Diego gave us because they just got a new couch, which is almost the exact same, and it's a super expensive couch, and they just gave it to us because we needed a couch. We were gonna settle for some cheap leather Walmart thing, and now we have this really nice and really expensive couch, and it's so comfy. And it's just nice having space. It's amazing.
I was gone for a few minutes, and all of a sudden we went from talking about Wonder Woman and Black Panther feminism to about an apartment.
No, I just wanted to brag because
you missed an incredible story.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My computer decided to crash on me.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry, I'll hear it in the podcast on YouTube.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that because we just finished moving on Sunday, and we just got our Wi-Fi set up yesterday, and it's just it's such an amazing difference. Just having space to actually relax in, and to not feel like you're cramping. Not that I hated my studio, but it wasn't the best place to live in. Is all I'm gonna say. But yeah, so what I was gonna ask earlier, because back to the whole Kristen Wiig thing. I loved her in The Martian. I really liked The Martian, and what I was gonna ask earlier was Kate, since you brought up, you said you just watched it, I think recently, right? What were your thoughts on The Martian? Because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that. I know this is a little off topic, but I just want to hear what your thoughts were. Or Danielle.
Danielle.
Sorry.
I'll tell you, but
But I haven't got really organically excited about a space movie in a very long time. But I used to be I was an Apollo 13 kid every morning. I really dig that stuff, and I think that the cool thing about The Martian to me, one of the things that I thought was the coolest about it, was that I really believed that everybody in it was a NASA geek. I really believe, everybody was such a nerd. Everybody in the entire film was just the biggest magical big brain dweeb. And I love that because I think that a lot of movies have kind of lost that. I think we watched Interstellar afterward, and I think that was a huge mistake. Because Interstellar is a great example of how far we've gotten from that. The entire time I was sitting there thinking about Ben Affleck and that story that he tells where he just roasts Michael Bay. And like Bay's like, stop overthinking everything, Ben. Like, shut up. You know, like that idea that like, why would you train drillers to be astronauts instead of astronauts to be drillers? And this idea that like there's something inherently more valuable about like salt of the earth, like practical drilling guys, than there is about like, you know, the smartest people in the country who majored in rocket science, working on really complicated, cool shit. And that like those people are less valuable, is really like a weird idea that's sort of been injected into all these space movies, and all of a sudden we have all these like space cowboy movies, and I was like just so charmed to have you know, to have this like, you know, geeky long range flight crew, and like have the main character just be a botanist, and it was so refreshing to see Matt Damon act again in a really like in an impactful way. Like he was given so many opportunities to perform,
like, you know, not in a Jason Bourne way.
Yes. Like he's being given opportunities to really be a really interesting, textured character, and I'm really tired of spy Matt Damon, who doesn't really have a lot going on. His like vulnerable moments were really great. Every time that he teared up, I teared up. I got really, really like emotionally connected to like, and I didn't expect to. I was like, I don't care about Matt Damon. I'm like really interested in what's happening on the ground. And I can't remember what's his name.
Chiwetel Ejiofor?
He was also... No, he was great though. My favorite performance in the movie was what's his face, who's barely in it.
Donald Glover, right? No.
Donald Glover was so good in that movie. Oh my god, that character was my favorite character.
Yeah, Childish Gambino. Yeah.
He was fantastic. He was so good.
And he the crazy thing
from everybody else.
He came in the movie like randomly, like in the last like 30 minutes, and he like stole the movie.
He did. It was so great. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, his presence in that movie was felt, and it was gorgeous.
I think I can honestly say The Martian is one of my favorite movies of the last few years. And I wasn't expecting much, because I thought the trailer was horrible. I remember seeing the first trailers, and I'm just like I literally feel like I saw the entire movie in this trailer. But then I watched the movie, but there's so much to the movie. I can talk about the movie all day. I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on it, because I feel like no one talks about The Martian anymore.
I don't think those... Yeah. I don't think those were quick thoughts, but those were my thoughts.
It's a really good movie, but I will say, compared to the book, I was a little bit let down, because the book was so off the charts awesome in terms of some of the character and just the wildness of the comedy, and just the way he described things. Like, he comes to after the accident, and he's torn between this, amazing pain and just wanting to die. And, like, the way that the narration was in the book was so freaking hilarious. I did love that. I kind of missed it in the film, but the film was actually really good.
Yeah, and because my parents more or less said the same thing, because they read the book before they saw the movie. So they're like, the book's a little more detailed about certain things, but I still liked it, but they still missed out on things. I mean, I feel like you get that in any adaptation.
The book has the same title, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
By Andy
I'm gonna look
Weir,
it up
Weir, Weir, I think.
Weir, I think.
I think, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
he was just, I don't know, it was just funny the way it read. That was half of it. It was just reading it and enjoying it was so much fun, and he's like, here's a conversation between NASA and me, I should do this thing. NASA, no, it's too dangerous, you can't do that. Me, but I could do this, would be pretty easy. NASA, no, we cannot take chances with this. Me, does it anyway. NASA, dick. And it just was, it was funny.
Yeah, a really surprising movie. I think I've been watching a collection of really surprising movies lately, because I'm branching out and not just watching things where people are superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, so now back to the Yeah. Back to Kristen Wiig.
Podcast anymore, so I'm out.
So back to Kristen Wiig as Cheetah. I'm very surprised. Honestly, if they were going to include, I'm just very intrigued to see how they handle Cheetah, because Cheetah is a very outlandish character for what these movies have established.
Kristen Wiig, right?
Huh?
Did anyone?
Oh, we're talking about Kristen being Cheetah, right?
Yeah, talking about Kristen Wiig. Yeah.
Did anyone read Greg Rucka's recent thing with Cheetah?
No, the last thing I read, I think it was like early New 52 Justice League, and they were hunting Cheetah, and even then, like, I think that was back when Jeff Johns was still writing it, and even then, like, it seemed interesting because I didn't really at that point I didn't really follow Cheetah in the comics. Like, she wasn't a character that like I really knew all that much about. She seems really interesting in her relationship with Diana, or the Barbara Minerva version anyway, of feeling that like Diana Diana feeling like she failed her friend, and just from what I was able to read from that short run that Jeff Johns did in Justice League, I felt that like that handled in a cinematic universe, or even like having them not even be friends, but have like if Patty and Warner Brothers are bold enough to have her be like Diana's ex-girlfriend, you know, and be strong enough to be like, oh hey, Wonder Woman actually is bi, and here's evidence of it.
Well, I went looking for Cheetah fan art, and I was very surprised by how prevalent that ship is. I did not know about that ship before I went looking, because I was just looking for like, you know, concept art, like what it might look like, and I just ran across all this Cheetah fan art, and half of it is just like her straddling Wonder Woman, her making out with Wonder Woman. It's like, oh, okay. I didn't know we were going that way, but okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it could definitely be interesting. I'm curious to see how they handle it. Again, Kristen Wiig wouldn't have been my first choice. I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't bring in Charlize Theron, especially because Charlize was in Patty's movie Monster, which got her the Oscar nomination.
Yep.
But Kristen, I love Kristen Wiig so much. Like, it's like in The Martian, in Saturday Night Live, and pretty much any movie she's been in, like, even if the movie's bad, she's never the issue. She always delivers. She's an amazing comedic actress, and even dramatic actress. Like, even like with The Martian, even though her character is more comedic, I thought she was a great character in The Martian. And again, not my first choice to play a DC villain, but in Patty's hands, I have faith that she'll do the character justice, or at least for the most part, anyway.
My issue is I thought that they were going to have the next movie for Wonder Woman to be set before Batman v Superman. I mean, unless they want to do it after Batman versus Superman. And how is the movie going to include Steve Trevor and
Superman?
Sorry.
That's Sammy.
These are like trigger words in our house. So like, right, now you're watching Batman vs Superman for 3 hours, Batman. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know, I'm just confused about the storyline, because I thought they were still gonna go, like, I don't know. How are they going to do it?
I don't know, because they keep saying, oh, it's going to take place in the 80s. Oh, it's going to be this Cold War spy thriller kind of thing. And I'm like, has anyone actually...
But then that ruins continuity, because in Justice League,
all of this other
Ben
stuff
Affleck
is so
keeps saying...
nonsense.
It's like Ben Affleck keeps saying, oh, after Steve died, and after after he sacrificed himself, or like after she left the world after a century of horrors. Like, there's so much continuity errors here.
Oh, we already had that conversation. Yeah, so
where's Justice League?
What is going on? They can't just like completely wipe out the existence of Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel as well. Like, maybe they will. That's why they booked Justice League over that badly. But I guess we're just gonna have to include the DCEU world excludes Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel.
I don't buy into any of these these time-setting rumors, because or the bringing back the entire cast rumors. All of those things, all of those things are just so terribly predictable that I'm not prone to buying into them. I don't really feel like that's necessary. Like it doesn't seem like a real kind of rumor to me. It sounds like something someone pulled out of thin air and decided, like, well, this will make a good headline. Whereas the Kristen Wiig thing, that's very surprising. That's like a thing that like that would be hard to make up, because it's just so very it's really surprising. It's just like a very, very random choice. If someone had floated Charlize, I would have been like, well, maybe that sounds like something that people would guess. But the fact that people are floating Wiig makes me feel like it's a definite possibility. And Cheetah keeps coming up. Cheetah just keeps coming up, so I feel like there might be credence to that. The idea that we're going to bring the entire cast back seems like crazy to me. Like, maybe we'll have flashbacks or something, but that narrative is a pretty closed circle, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like. As much as I love Steve Trevor, like, I don't see the need to bring him back, because then it defeats the purpose of Wonder Woman's ending. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Agreed.
I feel like they're gonna pull a major weird twist and just say like, "Oh, this is Steve Trevor's son out of wedlock."
Huh?
God, I hope not. Gross.
Like Steve Trevor's son from another woman.
Well, also, I mean, timeline-wise, I don't think that would really work. It would have to be like, if they were gonna do something stupid like that, it would have to be like a grandson, because even a son would still be like 60-something by the time, like, the 80s are around, or.
Oh yeah, your father died, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and go with you, his grandson.
But it will also be a continuation error, because according to Steve Trevor, he did not experience this kind of life, with kids and family and stuff.
Yeah, but he also lies a lot, so who knows?
Yeah, but I don't think they would come up with some BS like, because also, well, again, the whole son thing just wouldn't make sense, because it's just biologically.
Yes, but this.
Didn't they?
Yes, but you gotta remember.
I think it was Civil War or Ultron when what's his name, Captain America. They tried to pull the storyline that he fell in love with Peggy Carter's niece.
Civil War.
Yeah.
Was that Civil War? I don't know.
Yeah, that was Civil War.
I had like a problem with that and thought that was a bit creepy. So,
it was.
You want to go there again?
Yeah.
I find that a lot more legit than a direct descendant kind of situation. Like,
I do too.
Like Sharon is definitely in Steve's sphere and makes a lot of sense, and has a long history in the comic books as well. But like the idea of just sort of like throwing Diana with any like remotely Steve looking dude is just, I mean, it's kind of insulting on a queer level. Because it's just like at that point they're just like they're just like desperate to throw her at any male character, and it's like she doesn't necessarily even need a romance. And I would imagine the next step for these films would be to have a film where she doesn't have a romance at all, would be my assumption. That would be an evolution, but I don't know. I think that it would be very, very different to like kind of like clone resurrect Steve so that she can continue to date him versus what happened with Sharon, which was like, I mean, like kind of weird, but like comic book weird instead of like, I don't know, overly contrived, creepy cloning bullshit weird.
Yeah. Even with Captain America,
like we could definitely take a sample of Steve's DNA from the crash and, make her a Steve-shaped robot, but that would also be really weird and fucked up. So
then again, it's comic books. It isn't weird.
I know, nobody's ever really dead, but at the same time, I just feel like it does a huge disservice, always. When somebody goes out like that, when you bring them back, you just kind of do a disservice to their entire arc that came beforehand.
Well, that's like any time... That's like the entire fucking MCU, where they kill off everyone, and then everyone just comes back. Like,
yeah. That is my prediction for Infinity War. They'll kill everyone off, and then use one of those Infinity Stones to bring them all back to life. You'd be like,
you know what? That sounds about right, actually. So.
Yeah, and honestly, like at this point, like I don't. I want to see Steve Trevor again, but I don't want some clone thing. I don't want some descendant. I'd rather have no Steve Trevor and have his book closed, because Wonder Woman is not about Steve Trevor. Wonder Woman is about Wonder Woman and her journey. Mm-hmm. Like Steve Trevor is a part of that journey, but in this universe, I believe his part in her life is closed. And the Wonder Woman movie showed that. And if they bring it back, they're just reiterating the fact that, like, Wonder Woman is nothing without a man. And that's not what she is at all.
Definitely not the message that needs to be sent.
So, yeah, they don't need to do that. I'd rather have...
Speaking of Wonder Woman and relationships... I don't know if you guys read this, but did you read that one entire story, comic book story, of Bruce and Diana? And how Diana literally made out with Bruce while he was still getting married to Selena?
No.
Wait, when was this?
Yeah, that was...
They didn't make out.
Pardon, what did you say, sorry?
They didn't make out. There was, like, a weird temptress storyline.
Oh.
I'm being with Wonder Woman whilst he's with Selena.
Yeah.
He definitely teased the idea that he was going to do Wonder Bat, and then the last second, he was like, oh, no, Bruce would never. And then, like, I don't know, him and Selena had a conversation where she was like, were you bad? And he was like, almost. And she was like, unacceptable.
I'm sorry to those who ship on that, but I'm totally, like, I just don't...
we're
Batman
there.
as a character just doesn't fit with Wonder Woman as a character and what she stands for and what Batman stands for. Opposites attract, but I don't know. And I've seen, like, the animated stuff, and I know I've said this before, but why would someone try to do that in the comics? Like,
because they don't
as
think
if Wonder Woman would cheat would allow herself to be the person that cheats. You get what I mean? Yeah, right?
Well, because that's what I believe.
What's so annoying about it is that this is the same exact shit they pulled with Superman. Like back in the day, it's a repetition of the same storyline where, like, they get trapped somewhere and then Wonder Woman is like the temptress. And it's, like, unfair to Wonder Woman, and it's weird that they're using Wonder Woman as, like, a weird gauntlet that men have to pass through on the way to their marriage. And it's, like, it's really creepy that it's happened twice now in pretty much the exact same way.
Yeah,
and it forces Wonder Woman to be, like, the girl who gets turned down. It forces Wonder Woman to be like, oh, well, I'm just desperate to make out with you. And the guy to be like, well, I like another girl. Please stop, young lady. Like, stop.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I completely agree. Like, especially, like, lately in comics, it feels like if Wonder Woman isn't with Steve Trevor, they feel like, oh, well, she has to be with someone, right? She has to be with Superman or Batman. That's just how it has to be, right? Because if she's not with Steve Trevor and she's not with Batman, oh, it's an Elseworld story where Lois Lane is now dead and we have to have Superman and Wonder Woman bang and have super babies, right? It's the same repetitive conversation.
What's bizarre is that in the latest example, she was with Steve Trevor. They were both thinking about cheating. That's what's crazy about it. Like, it's a mess. It was really, really bad.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally do not like Steve Wonder. I think that's probably my least favorite ship of all time because of just how much they both just have power and there's no real differing dynamic. Like with Clark and Lois, they come from different worlds and have different ways of doing things. And it's these different opposites that I find interesting to see how they both handle it together. But when it comes to Superman and Wonder Woman, it's like they both can fly, they both have powers, and like, I don't know. Maybe it's because of the Dark Knight Strikes Back that's kind of soured.
Oh, I haven't even bothered to read that garbage. Yeah, yeah.
Trust me, don't. It's not worth anyone's time.
Yeah, and already, like, I'm already tired of that because of fucking Injustice and Injustice 2. Like, I already hate what they did do to Superman and Lois in those stories, but already I'm just, no.
Yes, and Wonder Woman have sex so hard that he creates earthquakes and tornadoes.
Oh god, well that was like in Smallville. I remember there was an episode where they had Clark and Lana were together at this point, and Lana got Clark's powers for a bit, and they have this scene of them, like, first of all, it shows, so they both gave each other that look, and then all of a sudden you see, like, on the other side of Smallville, and all of a sudden there's an earthquake going on, and then you find out that they ultimately banged, and that's why I think it's fresh. Like, it was funny at the time, but like,
wow.
But honestly, it's like they feel. I hate the argument that, like, oh, like, why is Superman with Lois? Like, he could break her by just touching her. Like, that's not what the relationship is about. It's not a physical relation. It's not about the physical part of the relationship. It's just people just want Superman and Wonder Woman together because they're both physically able enough to have good sex, I guess, without having to break the other person.
There's like literally two stupid mentalities in DC's or in editorial in general. Is that first, superheroes can have interesting love stories with normal people, and superheroes should date with superheroes because that way they can have a healthy sex life or something like that. And it's so disgusting, to be honest. And I am so glad that they threw this away in current timeline, because apparently, since Lois has a son from Superman, so it means they're compatible pretty much, and there is no problem like that people thought about in the past in order to push
she can even
Superman
give birth to a Kryptonian with no problem.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I like that.
Yeah. I wonder about the biology of that. Like, I'm like genuinely the scientific aspect of different DNAs working together. Sorry.
And then
I was just thinking, my gosh, like, he could damage her from the inside, but then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, he's never had sunlight on him. He's not that strong. We're good. So.
No, I'm not talking about that in an aspect. I'm talking about genetically.
Yeah.
I'm sure the chromosomes same. Sorry, yeah. It's interesting. If they could bring, like, a scientific view into it, wow. That'd be really fun. Sorry, I just thought that was a big thing to present to.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm kind of biting my tongue because I have, like...
So what was that? Your mic kind of cut off.
This is bullshit, but they're all very have a lot to do with...
Sorry, Danielle, your mic's kind of cutting in and out.
You're saying good stuff, and we're missing it all.
Hello?
Danielle?
Yeah. Oh.
We might have lost her.
Am I back?
Oh, we can kind of hear you, but it's choppy.
All right, never mind then.
Oh, there you go. Now you're good.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. I have, like, many very complete essays on Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex, and how it's crappy and has nothing to do with, like, the realities of sexual biology, and was written by some dude who apparently has zero credentials on the subject.
Oh, heavens.
And we've been deferring to him for 20 years now, and it's complete nonsense. But But
don't get me wrong, Daniel. I'm not talking about the sex part. Like, I'm sure.
No, I think genetics is really interesting too. I agree with you. I agree with you.
I was talking like on a molecular basis.
Yeah. The genetic question, and the actual, like, you know, how reproductive stuff would work, is very interesting. It's just funny that so many people are focused on the sex part, which is like
my issue with it is
really an example of how sex education has failed just swaths of people in this country. Like the idea that you need to, like, I don't know, that men are these sort of like crazy sex jackhammers that, like, cannot be controlled, and then like apparently jizz at the speed of sound, which is just like, there's no need. Like, do you know that, like, it doesn't have far to go? Like, I'm just gonna say that it doesn't have far to go. There's no need for Superman to have shotgun jizz. That's all I'm saying.
Shotgun jizz. Oh my god.
We've really gone off the rails on this one, guys.
Just like, because do you know how Superman's, I don't know whether, yeah, but Superman's powers are his powers on Earth because of the sun, but would that, like, change the way his molecular fiber is made, or like together? I don't know, because if you have, I don't know, like, this is really, I'm genuinely starting to, like, think about this, like, on a real level, because in Krypton, if he was to have, so if we were in Krypton, do you think we would have Superman powers because of the red sun?
Okay.
Like, are they saying that they're human in Krypton and they don't have those powers? They're just normal human beings, but Kryptonian, and we're Earthens, whatever.
Think of it like this.
So I'm trying to understand, like, the only reason Superman has his powers is because he's on planet Earth.
Well, if we think about it from the Man of Steel perspective, like how, remember when Lois Lane was on the ship and she needed this sort of mask in order to breathe. So, and she wasn't flying around or shooting lasers out of her eyes there, so it would probably be safe to assume that probably not.
I mean, Superman had problems breathing when he was on Earth too. He had lung problems and he couldn't, like, properly breathe when he was a baby. Martha Kent said it. So I feel like if I flew into Krypton and got used to it, and, like, you know, Kal-El's parents, like, sorted me out just like Martha Kent sorted Clark out, I'd be a superwoman.
I don't know.
I don't know if that reverse works.
It doesn't.
It depends on.
See, we need a series about this.
we need what's his name? We need Neil deGrasse Tyson to explain this to us. That's who we need. We need Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Man of Steel establishes this pretty clearly as, like, radiation based, like it's a radiation issue. But, like, a lot of mythologies treat this as photosynthesis and just say that, like, Kryptonians are photosynthesizing creatures, so the amount of sunlight, the amount of radiation in a yellow sun is so much higher than the radiation in a red sun that, like, they basically super photosynthesize. They're, like, overfed, and that's why Superman has powers, is this idea that he's been supercharged, and it's actually a part of his biology.
Yeah, but that means that the Kryptonian biology benefits from Earth's sun to get those powers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a human going back to Krypton is going to end up with the same thing. They're going to end up with different adaptive issues and possible side effects, but I don't think it would be exactly the same. Like, I don't think you can go to Krypton and be a Superwoman fan. I'm sorry.
Dang it! How's something going right? Okay, both of yous.
That's it. I'm leaving
sorry.
No.
So this is another question I'm wondering, since we're talking about Kryptonian biology. Since we're talking about Kryptonian biology, I was thinking about Supergirl, like, in terms of Man of Steel, because I think in Man of Steel it said, like, all Kryptonians are, like, created and preordained to have this sort of place in society. So that would beg the question, what was Kara's place in society? And if if they're keeping with the canon of the prequel comics in Man of Steel, and she was the one who got out of that pod, would she still have those like preordained sort of like a preordained, like she was created to be like a doctor or something? Would that still hold true when she's on Earth and she just like was a doctor? Because I was
Honestly,
just thinking about that.
I think that would make Supergirl a lot more interesting premise to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to
like
see
in
this.
general.
Can Zack do a Supergirl movie now, please?
Like, yeah,
Really
the idea of her sort of like fighting or embracing her Kryptonian programming, because she's not. Yeah, she's fundamentally different from Clark in this version, because she would be part of that system, and it would be a great way to explore that system more and how it functions. And I would be super down for that.
Wouldn't that be interesting? I already spent a lot of time thinking about Jor-El and Lara, and I have a fic burning in the back of my brain that I've been meaning to write forever, and I suck. But like seriously, about how they also are born of the programming, idea. And the artificial births and everything, and so they also have established roles in society that they're supposed to be adhering to, and they do, and it's really fascinating for me to think about. Okay, so how exactly did they justify it to themselves, or how did they squiggle inside that programming to come out with, we're going to have an organic child the natural way, and ship him off, hoping that somehow that will, sustain, that'll keep our race alive because this planet's toast.
I think that was the scientist aspect of.
See, thank you. That was my exact thought for him. It was like, yeah, the scientist would be like, well, time to give this a try and see what happens,
Yeah, I feel like I think it's the natural conclusion of being sort of like programmed to be a scientist, is this idea that eventually he would just. By being being predisposed toward being such an amazing scientist, that he would reach this conclusion, whether they wanted him to or not.
Yes.
He would be like, well, so genetic diversity is good, and we should strive for it, and we should definitely experiment with that. And then, all of Krypton being like, no.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because it's just like Zod. He was born to protect his race and be a soldier no matter what. They didn't expect him to protect his race to the point that he went, okay, it's time to arrange a coup and completely overtake the established government because, my race is dead if we don't. Like, they never expected him to reach that conclusion, but that's where he got to, and that's what he did. And it's not like he had any kind of inner programming going, no, don't do this. He was totally sure that this was the right way to go. And so, yeah, it's a really fascinating aspect to look at free will versus programming, because the programming's there, but it doesn't define everything, and they can go in kind of different directions that nobody really expected, which is really interesting.
When he lost it all, when he lost it all, he just completely broke down. Like, he was like, this is what I had, this was what I was born to do, to protect the people. But now you took all the people, and now I legit have nothing left in my life anymore. And
so now I'm just going to be the avenger of my people and take all your people. Okay, and off he goes. So that's just why.
He even went so far as to say, my soul, that is what you have taken from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I'm sure they had some type of apoptosis when they would, how in Krypton they made babies differently, and because if you don't have genetic diversity and you don't and it's just the same genes all over again or somewhat similar versions, you can get diseases. I don't know about how Kryptonian biology works, but human biology, you shouldn't really be breeding from the same family or the same type of people at the same time, because sooner or later in Krypton, whether you like it or not, even if it's from 20 families, they're the scientists, 20 families, they're that's the army soldier type of people. Over 100, 200, 300 years, the genes aren't really healthy anymore because you're more susceptible.
A lot of problems.
So I don't know whether Kryptonian biology has that at all, but I was just wondering, because we shouldn't do that here on Earth. Maybe it's the same there. But how did they survive that long, and how did they end up having such a large population?
Maybe that's why they ended up so stuck in their ways that they were totally okay harvesting the core of their planet, even though to us that seems like amazing suicide. You know, maybe that was part of the problem, is that the artificial reproduction slowly but surely, you know, rendered them not as capable of handling issues as their
predecessors. I think it's everything. I can't escape science.
I think it's a fantastic metaphor, though, for how sort of creativity breaks down in our current social construct, and how that lack of diversity, that lack of different thought, of free and individual thought, leads to the stagnation of culture, and leads to people like, you know, like, I mean, like, I think that Man of Steel directly addresses our abandoning the space program, our doing all these things that sort of like shut down any kind of innovation, the way that companies have sort of just squirreled up around their copyrights and stopped experimenting with things and started going for the easiest answers when it comes to technology. All of that stuff, I think, is addressed in the decline of Krypton, and I think that's what's so beautiful about this particular version of Krypton, is that it really does sort of start peeling away some social ills that I don't think people talk about very much, and that these films, I think, as a whole, kind of address.
But then to a degree, I can see the opposite thing as well, because they've used science so much that they've left the natural method of, you know, conceiving children and having that available. If we adapt, I don't know, like, science is great, and I'm a huge advocate of science and organ donation and experimentation and having less red tape, because the red tape that you have in the world of scientific research and in medicine is a lot, and maybe that's what's hindering or like halting the advancements that we can actually, you know, achieve. But at the same time, the reason why we have that red tape and why we have those boundaries is because at the end of the day, we can't lose the core principle that we're human and there's ethics revolving around that. So I understand that advancing in science and doing so much is amazing, and I can see it on a day-to-day basis. But at the same time, you need to remember that we need to keep the humanity part. They lost their humanity or whatever for Kryptonians, and that's why they ended up doing what they ended up doing, because they took the extreme of scientific exploration and scientific knowledge, because they ended up outsourcing to, you know, learn more about cultures and move to different planets, which is what we're doing. So science can be a double-edged sword. It's so great, but at the same time, you can easily get yourself lost and losing the thing that makes us human and the thing that gives us this amazing, I don't know, humanity. It's not just humanity, it's like community.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between sort of like using those scientific discoveries for control versus using those scientific discoveries for exploration. And I think that you're hitting on something really important, which is that like exploration is part of the human condition, and it's a really important part that I think that, you know, the beginning of Man of Steel at least critiques that loss of that explorative spirit, that loss of that sense of like moving forward and being curious, and the idea that comes with some types of science, that we know everything and that there's nothing new in the world, is destructive. And I think it is sort of a loss of humanity, when I think about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, why can't we use organs from animals and take them, wash them in stem cells, and you can do that. But then I watch movies like Splice. I don't know if anyone's seen Splice, and I'm just like, wait, no, I'm glad, I'm good, thank you, because
I know someone is gonna be like, oh,
lost into this world where you want to do so many things, but then you need to have, like you said, I don't know, I can't explain it, because when I'm doing the research and when I'm searching for things and when I'm like writing something up, I'm just like, oh, why can't I just do this? Imagine if I could do this. And then I have to like pull myself back and be like, wait, the reasons why we can't do this is because it will in the future affect in a negative way. Sorry.
Yeah. I feel like animal splicing, someone's gonna say, so could I be able to put a horse's dong on my own?
No.
Oh gosh, you know something.
I know someone's gonna say it. It's like, no, you can't put a horse's dong on your own. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, it doesn't really work like that, even if we could. I mean, yeah.
This is an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Believe me, the things I've seen, especially when I'm at the hospital or like wherever, it's really interesting. That's why anything that deviates into science, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I should go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no! You're fine. You're fine. I just realized how long we've been going on for, but I think with that being said, thank you guys all for doing this today. I'm glad we were able to get you on for the last leg of the podcast, Fatma. I know we rambled a lot today. Definitely didn't stick to the news topics that I thought we were, but that's okay because we are who we are, and if you listen to us because you want a straight-laced conversation, well, this ain't the podcast for you.
Sorry, I took it away, guys. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, you're fine. Like, I'd rather have like more diverse conversation.
You're not the only one who took us off, babe. We've all done it.
Yeah, we like literally each of us like took us off topic today. You're fine.
Each of us has got tangents.
Yeah, we talked about DC TV for like half this podcast. It was the best.
Yeah, and then
I want to talk about DC TV, but yeah. I have my opinions.
Yeah. And I promise you.
Anyway, finish off.
And we'll definitely be hearing them soon, probably, because that's just how we are. So thanks again to everyone.
Yes.
Al, Danielle, Fatma, Katie, Jean, Rebecca. I believe that's everyone, right? Yeah. RTM. Oh my God, sorry. Sorry. There's a lot of us here. Thank you guys all for joining me this week, and thanks everyone for listening. And I'll talk to you guys soon. And for everyone listening, again, thank you so much for listening. If you guys like what you see here or what you heard, please hit subscribe below. Share the podcast around. If you guys like it, please let us know in the comment section below. And give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, you guys can stay tuned for our next podcast coming up in the next couple weeks or so, depending on what our schedule is. So thanks again. And until next time, have a good one.